Big sister Shirley. You look so pretty when you smile, Anna said seriously as she looked at Shirley's face. Ever since Shirley came back, she always had a hint of sorrow in her eyes. Anna hadn't even seen her smile before. Shirley was a little stunned. She suddenly realized that she had been giving off negative energy unknowingly ever since she returned to Chaos City. It had to have affected Anna. She looked at Anna, and apologetically said, "I'm sorry, Anna. It's all right. I just hope that you can smile more, like just now," Anna said with a smile and a shake of her head. I will." Shirley nodded with a smile. It was as though Anna's smile had completely gotten rid of all the haze that had been gathering inside her. Shirley might be unable to forget her hatred, but if she allowed it to take over her life, that would be the most unfortunate thing ever. "Wow, look, I can do the evil dragon spin." A gold and a silver giant dragon were spinning in the air where Mia's laughter came from. "This is the most useless skill in a battle. Instead, it will expose your weak points to your opponents," Elizabeth commented coldly. "Oh." Mia changed back to the normal flying position beside Elizabeth. After that, she excitedly asked, "When can I start learning battle skills? Can I also make hail fall easily with a flap of my wings just like you?" "No, you can't." Elizabeth shook her head. "What about frozen magic?" "No, all right." Mia felt dejected. She said in despair, "Looks like I'm really not talented." "It's not about talent." Elizabeth suddenly picked up speed, and then turned to face Mia. She looked into Mia's eyes, and said, "You're Rankster's daughter. You have pure blood, and are also super talented. Then why can't I learn them?" Mia asked with bewilderment. "You have the golden dragon blood, and it's not suitable for you to learn the frost dragon tribe's magic. However, you can learn the golden dragon tribe's power spell and become the superpower that rules the sky." Elizabeth shook her head, and said, "Therefore, if you want to become stronger, you have to accept the help of the golden dragon tribe." "But, aren't I a frost dragon?" "Father is a frost dragon, and you are a frost dragon." Mia was a little puzzled. "Our grandmother is a golden dragon, so maybe that's why you've inherited the golden dragon blood. On top of that, it's the purest royal blood," Elizabeth said. "So the things that those golden dragons said were true? If I wanted to become stronger, I would have to return to Golden Dragon Island." Yabimiya frowned. She wanted to become stronger so that she could protect her older sister and the people from the restaurant, but she couldn't bear to leave everyone. "This is not up to me to decide." Elizabeth shook her head slightly. The Frost Dragon tribe and the Golden Dragon tribe weren't really on good terms. A few hundred years ago, the two tribes were even at war with each other because of their grandparents. Rodu, in the Magus Tower. "Sir, the preparation for the Magic Caster tournament is almost complete. We've also sent out all the invitations. This would be a grander and more exciting Magic Caster tournament." Brent looked at Richard excitedly. The Triennial Magic Caster Tournament was currently the most important event for the Magus Tower. The president had appointed him to organize it, which showed how important he was to the president. Therefore, he had to put extra effort into it. Richard looked up, and asked Brent, "Is Crassus' attendance confirmed?" Although he really hated that fellow, His Majesty even brought up Crassus' attendance to him today when he went to the palace. He had already promised His Majesty that he would ensure Crassus' presence at the Magic Caster tournament. "I believe he will definitely come, but he is a very egoistic old fellow. He even signed his disciple up, and it's even for the youth category. I want to see how things are going to end then," Brent said with a mocking smile. "Isn't his disciple only 4? Richard said with a frown. He had seen the little fellow personally previously. Although she was way stronger than normal 4-year-olds, she would only be trashed if she joined the official tournament. Exactly. He's courting his own death. This time, he's definitely going to tarnish both his and Urian's reputation," Brent said with a nod and a chuckle. "Interesting." Richard smiled. Since he didn't have a chance to defeat Krasu, he could still have his disciple defeat Krasu's disciple. That seemed rather good. Mag cooked a large pot of mutton soup, and waited for it to come to a boil before letting it simmer over a small fire. After that, he went upstairs to shower and sleep. The mutton soup had to simmer overnight. Besides, if he only sold the mutton soup in the morning, it would not be that fresh in the afternoon. Mag had decided to launch the mutton soup early the next morning to comfort the customers. After a shower, Mag lay on the bed excitedly as he clicked open the mutton kebab experience bag in his head. After the hands-on experience at night, Mag acknowledged that he was still far from being a good mutton kebab chef. He was an experience bag away. The information surged into his brain. A good mutton kebab had to start from choosing the mutton and bamboo skewer, proceeding to how the mutton was cut and marinated and all the other procedures. Every step wasn't as simple as he thought. The simple way of roasting used by the grasslands people was not suitable for every scenario. After all, not everyone was able to experience sitting under the azure blue sky and enjoying the fresh scent of the grass as the wind blew past while eating the roast mutton kebab with original taste. If I launched 2 new dishes in a day, they probably wouldn't say anything, right? Mag kicked open the door to the test field for the god of cookery, and walked in with resolution. Father, you have to believe me. There isn't a single chef in the entire Chaos City who can cook mutton. As long as we open a mutton restaurant in Aiden Square, we will definitely make big bucks, a young orc who was carrying a large wok on his back said with certainty to a tall orc beside him. Chaos City is a place where different races intermingle. It's a place where many hidden talents are at. It's not as simple as you think. The tall orc shook his head with a smile. He looked at the shops at Aiden Square. There weren't many restaurants open early in the morning. Along the way, they saw many shops selling wraps. Most of the restaurants sold beef and pork. It was indeed true that there wasn't a single mutton restaurant to be seen. Chaos City was a good place. Leiden had already heard people say that this was a place full of opportunities. As long as one was willing to put in some effort, they would not go hungry. That was the truth. After half a month of their arrival, the father and son duo had not only earned money for their meals, they even managed to save up 1,000 copper coins by moving goods for others and sleeping in communal bunk beds. However, that was not a long-term plan. There would be one day where Leiden would no longer be able to do manual labor, and Moore would still have to get married, so Leiden could not depend on Moore to support him when he was old. Therefore, the father and son duo did not rush to the factory this morning. Instead, they came to Aiden Square, which was said to be the busiest area of Chaos City, to take a look if they could find any opportunities. Aiden Square was huge. There were all kinds of shops lined up along the crescent-shaped square. There were tons of restaurants, and even tailors and cloth shops could be seen everywhere. There were drunkards staggering out of bars from time to time as women in chiffon dresses closed the doors behind them with a look of disdain. This scene made the father and son duo, who didn't have the chance to go out a lot, a little stunned. Leiden, who had been shepherding for his whole life, had no other abilities other than having strength. However, after seeing the rows of restaurants, Moore came up with an idea: open a mutton restaurant. Leiden had been interacting with sheep for the whole of his life. In the tribe, they did not sell their sheep. The most they did was barter the sheep with passing merchants for some salt, but the majority of the sheep were their food. He was not really good at anything, but he was pretty skilled at roasting mutton. He could make roasted mutton and stewed mutton, and come up with different new things with simple techniques to make mutton. In the past, he made so many children cry because they wanted to eat the mutton he made so badly. However, he had never thought that he could earn money from roasting mutton. We haven't seen any mutton restaurants on the way. Could it be that the people from Chaos City don't like mutton? Leiden said with a frown. How is that possible? Mutton is divine. How could anyone not like it? Moore thought for a while, and seriously said, I think it must be because no one could make mutton well. If they tried the mutton you made, they would definitely fall in love with mutton. Lydon shook his head. He did not lose his rationale because of Moore's words. Opening a restaurant required a large sum of money. They did not have the capital right now. Besides, even if they wanted to open a mutton restaurant, they had to at least know that there were people who loved eating mutton in Chaos City first before they could know if this business was viable. Although Lydon did not have much knowledge, he was not a fool. The father and son duo arrived at the other corner of Aden Square unknowingly. Moore suddenly pointed to the front, and asked, "Father, look, what are all those people in front lining up for? It's so early in the morning, and the weather is so cold. What are they lining up for? Are they waiting to start work?" Lydon was also a little shocked with that long line. "Let's go take a look. Since there are so many people lining up, the pay for this job might be pretty good," Moore said with a smile as he moved forward quickly. That made sense. Lydon took a few quick steps forward and caught up with Moore. They could think about doing business again slowly, but they first had to work hard to earn sufficient capital. However, when Lydon and Moore got closer, they were stunned. Those people lining up were all dressed to the nines. They looked even richer than the bosses they had seen for the past few days. These people weren't paid workers at all. "Look, Father, this is a restaurant." Moore looked at Mamie Restaurant in shock. This restaurant was incredibly posh. It had a wall made completely out of crystals. It was even more lavish than any of the restaurants he had seen before. Yet, so it's a restaurant? Lydon was also slightly shocked. This restaurant that could make so many bosses line up here early in the morning had to be incredible. They probably wouldn't be able to afford a meal here even if they emptied their pockets. Lydon tugged Moore's hand and brought him away. "Boss Mag is going to launch mutton soup in the morning and mutton kebab in the afternoon. 2 new dishes in a day. That's not like him at all." "Exactly. Besides, mutton had such a strong odor. I can't take it. You could eat tripe fine." "What is mutton?" "Boss Mag's culinary skill is at the level of a god. Since you put it that way, I'm getting more interested in the mutton soup." The customers' discussion made Lydon and his son stop in their tracks. They exchanged glances before turning their heads back to look at the entrance of the restaurant. On the entrance, there was a small blackboard with 2 rows of words. Moore, who was a little literate, read, "New product for this morning, mutton soup, new product for this afternoon, mutton kebab." It was 2 rows of very simple words, but they made Lydon's and Moore's eyes light up. "Father, look, I told you there would be people who like mutton. This is a restaurant that is popular with so many big bosses. They're selling mutton too," Moore told Lydon excitedly. Lydon was also a little excited. However, he calmed down quickly, and softly said, "It's only a new launch. It might not be popular with everyone. Let's line up and try it too. We can also see the customers' reactions to it." Moore also lowered his voice, but there was still an excitement in his gaze. But, Lydon fell silent. He looked at the posh setup of the restaurant. This kind of restaurant was not one they could set foot in. "If the food's too expensive, we can just take a look before coming out. If we don't sit, we won't even dirty their chairs." Moore could tell what Lydon was worried about. "I think the people in Chaos City are quite nice. All right. Let's line up at the back too." Lydon made the decision, and went to the end of the line with Moore. They had yet to find a permanent place to stay after coming over, and Lydon was a little embarrassed to go to someone else's restaurant to check it out. However, he really had no choice. He had little skill and not much money. If he wasn't sure, he wouldn't dare to make a rash decision. "Welcome to Mamie Restaurant." The restaurant's door opened slowly. A young man dressed in a white chef's uniform walked out with a few pretty ladies as they welcomed the customers at the door with a smile. "This is the restaurant owner? He looks so young." Lydon was a little shocked to see the young man. Leiden and Moore followed the line towards the entrance of the restaurant while being shocked at the young man. "Welcome." Mag nodded at them with a warm smile. His gaze paused on the young boy with a pot on his back. "Hi." Leiden quickly nodded back with Moore. He was about to step foot into the restaurant, but stopped to shuffle his feet outside before making his way in. Mag looked at the two for a while. He could tell from their tattered clothes that they were not wealthy. This young boy had a pot on his back and a short knife hung on his waist. This meant that out of the two, one of them could cook. The omniscient door notified him that this father and son duo was no simple orcs. Perhaps they'd just arrived at Chaos City, and didn't know the prices of Mamie restaurant, so they came in by mistake. There were many customers like that every day. Most of them would find an excuse to leave after taking a look at the menu. Mag did not look down on them. There were way more ordinary people in this world. Spending 200 copper coins on a bowl of tofu pudding was a very lavish thing to most. Leiden and Moore found a table near the entrance. It was more convenient to leave from there. They stood by the table and hesitated to sit. Their clothes weren't very dirty, since they would usually take their shirts off when they worked and put their shirts back on after they were done. However, this table and chairs were all as clean as a clear mirror. Not a trace of dust could be seen on the surface. If they were to sit, they would definitely cause a lot of dust to settle on the furniture, and the service staff would have to clean them again. "Please take a seat and browse through the menu first. Someone will come over to take your order." Gina walked over to them, and placed the menu down in front of them. It was the first time Moore had seen such a beautiful lady with such a lovely voice. His face flushed red, and he quickly looked down, afraid to even look at Gina. He tugged on Leiden's sleeve and sat down. "How could we?" Leiden was a little uneasy. He looked up and saw that Gina had already walked towards the kitchen. "Well, take a look at the menu first." Moore was also a little nervous and uneasy. However, since they had already taken their seats, they could not possibly stand up and leave right away. They still wanted to see if the customers liked the mutton soup. "All right." Leiden nodded. Since they'd already taken a seat, they'd just take a look at the menu first. "Sirs, there aren't any more seats. Can we share a table with you?" A voice sounded from beside them. Leiden looked up and met a plump, smiling face. The person who asked was a man dressed in a beautiful robe, wearing a large gemstone on his finger. Beside him was another man of a similar size and wearing an equally beautiful robe. It was obvious that the two of them were bosses. Leiden quickly pulled Moore up, and nervously said, "Boss, take a seat here." "Hey, hey, hey." Harrison and George were flustered the moment Leiden and his son stood up, and quickly reached out to stop them. "Please, don't. If you don't want to share the table, we can just wait. If you let us have the table, Boss Mag might think that we snatched the seat. That's really embarrassing." Harrison didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. It had to be their first time here at Mamie Restaurant, so they did not really understand the table sharing rule. Yet, there aren't a lot of tables in Mamie Restaurant, but there are quite a lot of customers. That's why the boss made the table sharing rule. As long as there are empty seats, we can share the table and eat together. We're not trying to snatch the table. We just want to share the table, George explained with a smile. They did not want to end up on Boss Mag's blacklist because of a ridiculous misunderstanding. After hearing their explanation, and seeing the two bosses appear even more nervous than he was, Leiden felt a little strange. He didn't expect bosses who were willing to share a table with them to exist. He thought for a while and sat back down with Moore uneasily. He shifted their luggage over to his side and nodded as he said, "Take a seat." "All right." Harrison and George smiled as they took their seats. "Judging from your accent, you don't sound like a local. Did you just arrive at Chaos City?" Harrison asked curiously after sitting down. Just recently." Leiden nodded and felt a little uncomfortable. Then you guys came to the right place. Mamie Restaurant is the best restaurant in Chaos City. The food here can't be found anywhere else, Harrison said with a smile. Okay. Lydon nodded. He put his hands under the table and rubbed them together, not knowing how to reply. Trajay glanced at the father and son, and changed the topic. Boss Mag stood us up for a day and launched 2 new products. How amazing! We have to try this mutton soup, and see how Boss Mag made it turn out. I've tried roast mutton before. There's a restaurant opened by shepherds selling roast mutton in the city's west. It's not bad. But as for mutton soup, I really wonder how Boss Mag would get rid of that rank odor. The smell isn't really friendly, Harrison said with a smile. If Boss Mag wasn't even capable of that, he wouldn't launch the mutton soup. Aren't you even confident in that? Trajay commented without a hint of worry. Lydon and his son pricked their ears as they listened to the conversation carefully. They were increasingly curious about Boss Mag. How good did his culinary skills have to be for this bunch of big bosses to line up early in the winter morning? Moore flipped the menu open. The moment he saw the prices at the side, he could not help but take in a breath of cold air. Lydon glanced over and his eyes widened immediately. The number of zeros on the menu made his vision blur. Even the cheapest tofu pudding was priced at 200 copper coins. A bowl of mutton soup cost 500 copper coins, and the mutton kebab, which was not available in the morning, was sold at 100 copper coins for a skewer. Lydon quickly did a mental calculation. He had 1,000 copper coins in his pocket. That was not even enough for him and Moore to order 2 sets of Yangzhou fried rice. Moore looked up from the menu and swallowed hard. He suddenly regretted pulling his father into this restaurant. Now, he had landed them in such an awkward situation. Just then, Mia came over to their table with a smile, and asked, "May I have your order please?" Lydon stared at the menu as beads of perspiration started forming on his forehead. He hesitated for a while before saying, "We'll get a sweet tofu pudding." "All right. 1 sweet tofu pudding. Please hold on." Mia nodded with a smile before turning to look at Harrison and Trajay. Harrison glanced at Lydon and his son with a smile before saying, "We'll have 4 bowls of mutton soup, and give me a set of Yangzhou fried rice too. I think that would go very well together." "I'll have a savory tofu pudding and yushao," Trajay added. "All right. Please hold on for a while." Mia nodded with a smile, and turned to walk towards the next table. However, Mag was a miracle worker who made them enjoy pig's stomach, tripe, and duck intestine. Therefore, most people ordered a bowl of mutton soup to try. There were also many who weren't in a rush to order the new dish. They wanted to look at the mutton soup others had ordered before deciding. "Hee, bro, judging from the way you walk, you must have done a lot of naughty things last night, right?" Randy asked Vicenio with a sly smile. "Don't even talk about it. Every day, I can only walk out of the room with the help of the wall. It's not something I can talk about," Vicenio said with a sigh. "Life is tough." Randy laughed. "Yeah. When can I see the end to these days? I have to walk down every street to collect rent one by one every day, and the moment I reach home, I will be pulled to bed. Money is just a figure. I feel that my life is very empty." Vicenio looked up melancholically. Randy's smile froze. He looked at Vicenio's face, and felt like giving him a punch. He hesitated for a while, and softly said, "Bro, I have a friend who wants to find a rich woman like your wife. Where can he find one?" Vicenio looked at Randy, and seriously said, "Bro, let me give your friend some advice. Young people should work hard and create things for themselves. Don't be like me. I can only lie aimlessly on a pile of money. I've lost my goals and my soul. A life like this is not happy at all." "It's all right. He doesn't need a soul or any goals. Besides, he's very happy, and he could also make the older sisters happy with him." Randy waved his hand to dismiss Vicenio's advice, and looked at him with anticipation as he said, "Just tell me where to look for rich older sisters like your wife." Vicenio looked at Randy questioningly, and asked, "That friend of yours that you are referring to, isn't you, right?" Randy's face flushed red. He didn't expect to be found out. Could he have expressed his intentions too obviously? However, Randy's mind was set after meeting Vicenio's gaze. He openly said, "That's right. I don't want to work hard. I want to lead a life of collecting rent every day and returning home at night to roll in the deep. Isn't such a life the final goal for working hard?" Vicenio looked at Randy silently for a while before saying, "But bro, your body. I don't think you would meet the requirements of my wife's friends." Randy raised his brow. He looked at the thin Vicenio, and then at himself. Although Randy was also thin, at least he had more energy and spirit compared to Vicenio. He couldn't tell where he was lacking. "Don't look at me right now. Back then, I was a hunk with 8 packs, and could go up to 7 times a night. I was so muscular I was equivalent to 2 of you," Vicenio lamented with a melancholic expression. Randy's eyes opened wide. He sized Vicenio up again. Why couldn't he tell that Vicenio used to be a muscular hunk? What happened to him over the past 2 years? Vicenio patted Randy's shoulder, and sincerely said, "Bro, you should just work hard. With your stature, I presume you won't even be able to last half a month." "Alright, bro. I will tell that to my friend." Randy swallowed as he nodded. He thought of the lady boss during that rainy night. Compared to those young ladies, she really didn't seem like the type that could be easily satisfied every day. "Your mutton soup, please enjoy." Mia walked over with a tray, and placed 4 bowls of mutton soup and the dipping sauce on Harrison's table before turning to walk towards the kitchen. The mutton soup was milky white, and there was half a bowl of mutton in the soup. There was fresh green coriander sprinkled on top, and the moment the bowls were placed on the table, the rich fragrance of the mutton soup surged over together with the steam. "Smells fantastic." Harrison could not help but praise when he smelled the fragrance of the mutton. He was already growing impatient as he watched the table next to theirs drink the soup. "Yes. It doesn't have the rank odor at all, only a very rich fragrance of the bone soup." "Boss Mag is really incredible," George complimented. Meanwhile, Leiden's and Moore's eyes also widened when they saw the mutton soup before them, and they could not help but swallow their saliva. "How exactly is this mutton soup made? How can the color look so good? It doesn't even have a tiny bit of impurity in it. How can the mutton be kept so perfect after it was used to make such a rich soup?" Leiden exclaimed to himself. This mutton soup was beyond his understanding even though he spent his entire life with mutton. He also admitted that he could not even make a bowl of soup like that, and could not remove the rank odor of mutton so well. It was only fragrant, not gamey. Moore was a little dazed. He thought that his father's mutton was the best in the world, and even the mutton soup his father made was better than others. However, this exquisite bowl of mutton soup proved otherwise. "Your mutton soup." Leiden quickly regained his senses. He quickly shifted the 2 bowls of mutton soup that were placed in front of them back to Harrison's side. That beautiful lady had to have served them to the wrong person. "I ordered it specially for you. Good things got to be shared." Harrison pushed the 2 bowls of mutton soup back to the 2 orcs with a chuckle, and said, "This is an unspoken rule in Mamie restaurant. The person who requested to share a table must treat the other party to a dish. Boss Mag launched the new mutton soup today. It's such a cold day, and a bowl of warm soup is just right to warm up your body. This is too expensive. We can't accept it." Leiden pushed the 2 bowls of mutton soup back to Harrison. 1 bowl of mutton soup cost 500 copper coins. They didn't even know each other. How could he just accept such a gift? Moore swallowed his saliva at the side. However, he did not say anything, as his father was right. They could not accept it. The mutton soup's already served. It's such a waste not to eat it. Look, we can't have 2 bowls of soup each, right? Harrison held Leiden's hand with a smile, and said, Bro, I think we're rather fated to meet. When we share tables again next time, you can treat me to something else. Leiden looked at Harrison's kind smile and hesitated for a while. He decided not to reject further, and embarrassedly said, Then we will accept your kind offer, sir. When we come here again next time and have money with us, we'll treat you. That's a promise. Harrison snapped his finger, and quickly scooped up a spoonful of milky white mutton soup. He blew on it a little before putting it into his mouth. Was that really mutton soup? He only tasted the sweet freshness of mutton, and there was no rank odor at all. The rich bone soup was clear and pure. Even with all the bone marrow infused within the soup, it was not thick and sticky. When he swallowed the soup, Harrison felt the warmth travel down from his throat and into his stomach. Ooh, Harrison could not control his fat from jiggling. The chill from lining up outside was completely dispelled with that shudder. He had a few more mouthfuls of soup, and could feel the warmth travel from his stomach all the way to the rest of his body, making him feel warm and fuzzy inside. This soup is comparable to the Buddha jumps over the wall. If we're talking about soup for the morning, the former has an edge. Harrison could not help but look towards the kitchen in awe. Boss Mag is Boss Mag indeed. Even his mutton soup is delicious. This soup is not bad indeed. The Buddha jumps over the wall is too much in the morning, but the mutton soup is perfect. Trajay nodded. After that, he picked up a piece of thinly sliced mutton with his chopsticks. The mutton wasn't exactly very enticing appearance-wise. After it was taken out from the soup, its scent was not that rich. However, one could not expect too much from it, since it was used to make soup. After all, the taste of the soup was the top priority. Is this small dish for the mutton? Just like for the roast duck. However, this dip is spicy, Harrison said as he looked at the little dish by the side. He could smell the faint scent of spiciness coming from it. Let me give it a try. Trajay dipped the mutton in the dry dip, and the soft slice of meat was immediately covered with the spices. The sesame, crushed peanuts, and bright red chili powder injected a soul into the plain mutton, making it look exceptionally enticing. Wow, this dip is invincible, Trajay praised. After that, he quickly put the mutton into his mouth. The fragrant and spicy dip, together with the soft and fresh mutton, brought a huge surprise to his taste buds and teeth. The crushed roasted peanuts and sesame exploded in his mouth together with the different spices to give off an inexplicable fragrance. At the same time, the spiciness made the eating experience even more thrilling. This is the best mutton I've ever had, Trajay praised with a thumbs up. Is it really that good? Leiden and Moore heard the two's compliments for the mutton soup, and could not help but question it. However, the scent from the mutton soup was too enticing, and they could not resist picking up their spoons and chopsticks. Leiden scooped up a spoonful of soup first. In order to make soup milky white, it would take at least 3 hours of simmering, and in those 3 hours, one had to constantly add wood to the fire. That was no easy feat at all. Even for the sheep that he reared, the mutton would inevitably disintegrate and become impurities in the soup after simmering for 3 hours. However, this soup was very pure, so it was apparent that the cook used not the meat, but the bone to make the broth. Just as Harrison said, this soup was fresh and did not have a hint of rank odor. On top of that, the freshness of mutton was brought out even more. Leiden did not know how the chef had managed to do that. He had thought of various ways to remove the rank odor, but only managed to reduce it a little. He was unable to completely get rid of the odor unless he used a very strong spice to suppress the scent. He would never be able to replicate such a refreshing smell. After thinking for a while, and not being able to figure anything out from the soup, he put the spoonful of soup into his mouth. The mutton soup was fresh and sweet, and this spoonful of soup was the epitome of that. To an old shepherd who had spent his entire life rearing goats, cooking mutton, and eating mutton, this freshness was even more prominent. The moment he drank the soup, he understood that the quality of this mutton was way better than that of those sheep he had reared. Even if he were to chop up an entire sheep of his to make one bowl of mutton soup, he would still be far from getting this freshness. It was not about how rich the freshness was. He long understood that soups that were too rich could easily feel greasy. The freshness in this soup belonged to another tier of freshness. It came from the ingredient. He did not know what sheep it was, but having no rank odor at all might have something to do with the animal itself. However, no matter what sheep it was, the freshness of this soup was indeed something he would never be able to match up to. It was fresh yet not gamey, rich yet not greasy, and thick yet not sticky. Just these 3 points alone would require a very good control over the fire used to make this mutton soup. A slight mistake, and this bowl of mutton soup would not be so perfect. Lydon knew very well how capable he was in making mutton. However, he was a little guilty right now. His skills could only be described as amateurish when compared to this bowl of mutton soup. This mutton soup is delicious. Moore had already gulped down several mouthfuls. His face was shining as though it was the best mutton soup he had ever had. The moment he had this thought, Moore froze. He turned to look at his father, who was in deep thought, and seemed to have guessed something. His father's mutton was indeed the best in their tribe. However, this chef from Chaos City was really incredible. If they could make mutton so delicious, Lydon and Moore would not dare to open a mutton restaurant. Moore put his spoon down, and picked up a piece of mutton with his chopsticks candidly. He had already come to terms with things. This chef was able to make all these big bosses line up early in the morning, so he would naturally not be someone a shepherd from a small tribe could compare to. Moore thought that he should change his attitude and taste this mutton soup with a mentality to learn. After cooking mutton in the soup for so long, most of the smell of the meat had already infused into the soup. Although the soup was fresh and delicious, the mutton would probably be tasteless if it was eaten just like that. Therefore, the chef served it with spicy powder dip. Lydon did not find that unique. When they had roast mutton, they would usually sprinkle some salt if they found that it was too bland. That was not much different from the spicy powder dip. He watched Trjay eat the mutton just now, so he followed suit, and dipped the mutton in the red dipping powder. The mutton immediately looked very enticing with the layer of powder on it. After that, he put the mutton straight into his mouth. Hot! Lydon's face flushed red almost immediately. He felt as though a fire had lit up in his mouth, and his tongue was so numb it had lost all sensation. Your first time having chili? Chew on it to release the aroma, Harrison said with a smile. He was way worse than this when he first tried the insanely spicy. Lydon quickly chewed upon hearing that. The fresh mutton soup squirted out, and that indeed reduced the spiciness significantly. After chewing, the crushed peanuts and sesame's aroma exploded in his mouth immediately. Coupled with the soft and tender mutton, Lydon felt as though the more he chewed, the more fragrant it got. Chapter 1706 Tell me, what is your dream? As much as they were surprised, they also could not help but feel a little dispirited. It seemed that their thought of opening a mutton restaurant would never be realized. They could already feel the distance and how much they were lacking. This thought made both of them sigh. Harrison glanced at the dispirited father and son, then at the goatskin clothes on them, and smilingly asked, "What do you do for a living? I see that you're both wearing sheepskin clothes. Are you selling sheep? Sheepskin clothes are warm. Even I have one," Trjay said with a smile. Lydon hesitated for a while, and replied with a forceful smile, "We used to be shepherds, but a while ago, our shepherding grassland was taken over by another tribe. Therefore, we came to Chaos City. As of now, we have been working for others to earn money. Our dream is to open a mutton restaurant." But, Moore motioned to the mutton soup in front of him, and regretfully said, "Father doesn't make mutton as good as this." "I see." Harrison thought for a while, smiled, and quickly replied, "If you use Boss Mag as a standard on whether you should open a restaurant, then none of the other restaurants in Chaos City should open. Exactly. Boss Mag is the top chef of Chaos City. He was even declared the best chef by the king of the Roth Empire at the royal banquet. How many chefs on the Norland continent would dare to say that they can cook better? Trajay replied with a smile. Leiden and more were stunned. They didn't expect the owner of this restaurant to be so formidable. However, if you want to open a mutton restaurant, you must have a certain level of skill. Mutton reeks with a strong rank odor. If you don't do it well, not many will like it, Harrison reminded them. Before this, he had tried various ways of eating mutton. Leiden pondered. Before coming to Chaos City, he had never minded the rank odor of mutton. They'd lived and stayed with sheep all their lives. During winter, they even lay on the sheep for warmth. Even if Moore minded the rank odor, he only used some simple methods to get rid of the smell. However, he didn't know if that would meet the expectations of Chaos City. The child was just spouting nonsense. We've just arrived here, and have not decided whether to open a shop or not. Leiden shook his head with a smile. He had already given up inside. He was simply an honest shepherd. He wouldn't know anything about business or opening a restaurant. He didn't have enough money in his pocket to rent a place to stay. What means would he have to open a mutton restaurant? He couldn't even afford a goat. Ding! New mission, Leiden and his son's dream. Please aid Leiden and his son in fulfilling their dream. You'll receive a mystery reward. The system's voice suddenly rang in Mag's head. Mag, who was busy cooking in the kitchen, was stunned. Frowning, he said, Leiden and his son's dream? System, do you think I am a fairy godmother? It is the job of the candidate for the god of cookery to bring your customers a happy dining experience and spread the culinary methods of creating delicacies. What has that got to do with helping people fulfill their dreams? Do I have to run to them and say, tell me, what is your dream? Do you think I am dying to become famous? You'll have a chance of getting strength from the mystery reward. Ahem, where's my leather shorts? Mag looked out of the shop. He swept a glance across the customers, and finally stopped at the orcs sitting near the entrance. He remembered that they were called Leiden and Moore. When he was greeting the customers at the door, he scanned their details, and knew why the system targeted them and chose them as the lucky consumers. However, Mag did not mind, since it was for his strength. He already could not wait to hold them back and ask them for their dream to help them realize it. That was right. He was a very helpful person. Since he was going to ask them for his dream, he would have to help them fulfill it. Otherwise, what was the point of asking? To earn some tears? When the entire world knew your dream, it would be very embarrassing if you were unable to push on. What did the orcs sitting at the entrance order? Mag asked Mia when she came in. A sweet tofu pudding. However, Harrison ordered 2 bowls of mutton soup for them, Mia replied. Mag nodded. He could tell that they were probably not very well off. Maybe their dream had something to do with money. Mag could satisfy any of their requests as long as they were within 1 million copper coins. He was that confident since he had the money. However, the 2 of them only ordered 1 sweet tofu pudding. Although Harrison also ordered a bowl of mutton soup each for them, Mag still had to keep a close eye on them in case he couldn't find them after they left. That would be awkward. Bro, I wasn't trying to discourage you. I think it's completely fine for you to give it a go. Boss Mag is paving the way for mutton. All the dishes he makes will quickly become a series of restaurants. If you could come up with your style of mutton, you would definitely be able to make it in Chaos City's food and beverage industry, Harrison quickly added on, seeing that Leiden appeared to have given up. He was afraid his words might scare a good chef away. Yes. There are a lot of people in Chaos City who don't really like mutton right now. However, no one had duck intestine and tripe in the past as well. These 2 things have increased in price over this period of time, Trajay added. Upon hearing the two's words, Lydon was a little moved. All of a sudden, he didn't know how to reply. Although my father's mutton isn't as good as this mutton soup, it's definitely the best in our tribe. He not only knows how to make roast mutton, but he could also even make mutton stew. His mutton stew is superb, Moore said with a nod. His face was full of pride. Mutton stew. Harrison's and George's eyes lit up. I see that you guys have a pot. Why don't we do this? After breakfast, we'll buy half a sheep and you, bro, can make us some mutton stew to try. We'll buy the sheep and if we like it, you can leave the mutton restaurant to me, Harrison said with a pat on his chest. Count me in. It's right to have dreams. I'll support your dream. George also patted his chest. This, Lydon looked at the both of them with agitation and gratitude. That's set. We'll set off after breakfast, Harrison said with a pat on Lydon's shoulder. At that moment, his fried rice and George's yoshao were served. Next, he ordered a plate of Yangzhou fried rice each for Lydon and his son. Mutton stew. Mag was slightly stunned, and missed the best chance to go out to stop them. Now, it would seem a little strange for him to leave the entire restaurant full of customers to chase them. However, since Harrison had already formed a connection with the father and son, Mag would not have to worry about not being able to find them. Harrison would come over to eat every day, basically 3 meals a day. Mia nodded. He looked at Mag curiously, and asked, "What's wrong, boss? Is there something wrong with them?" "Nothing. I'm just a little curious." Mag shook his head with a smile. He seemed to have appeared overly concerned, so he picked up his spatula and continued cooking. Harrison brought Lydon and his son onto his horse-drawn carriage, and they went straight to the market. Thereafter, they chose half a sheep, and Lydon picked some other ingredients and spices. They discussed the location at which they would make the stew, and decided on Harrison's factory. There was an empty space in front of his factory's entrance. He would usually use that space to store his goods, but because the winter storm had caused roads to be blocked, this period happened to be the low season. Therefore, the space in front of his factory was now empty. It was the perfect place to build the stone stove Lydon required. When they arrived, they alighted. Harrison got the orcs guarding the door to get some wood from the canteen, and help Lydon set up the stone stove. "Bro, is this okay?" Harrison asked with a smile as he rubbed his hands together. "Yes." Lydon nodded with a smile. "All right. Then you can begin. This place belongs to me, so you can do whatever you want," Harrison said with a smile. Lydon retrieved the pot he tied on their luggage and placed it on the stove. He ignited a flame and shoveled a pot full of snow to melt. In the meantime, he started to cut the mutton on another side. He quickly chopped up the half of the sheep, and used snow to rub and wash away the blood on the meat. When the melted snow in the pot started boiling, Lydon threw the meat into the pot, followed by the other spices he bought. After that, he rummaged through his luggage for a tree branch, and sliced 2 tiny pieces into the pot. Finally, he put the lid on the pot and let it simmer. "That's it." Harrison looked at Lydon in shock. It seemed a little too simple. "It does seem to be the case." George nodded slightly. For someone like him who would occasionally drop by the kitchen to watch the cook, stew seemed to just be throwing all sorts of things into the pot and closing the lid after. "It will take about 2 hours for the stew to be ready. Sirs, if you are tired or bored, you can return to the horse-drawn carriage. My son and I can stay here to keep watch," Lydon said awkwardly. "All right. Then I'll walk around the factory and come out for the mutton later." Harrison nodded, and brought George along into the factory. "Do you think it's good?" Harrison asked George softly after they entered the factory. "It's hard to say. Some say that cooking is a meticulous job, while others say cooking is something simple." George shook his head. "That's Boss Mag. He could come up with a delicacy as complicated as the Buddha jumps over the wall, and at the same time, he also let us experience the idiot-proof cooking with the hot pot. Harrison rolled his eyes with a smile, and said, "But I am looking forward to the taste of this mutton stew." "But why would you suddenly want to help them open a mutton restaurant?" George looked at Harrison curiously. He knew that although his friend was kind, he would usually just stop at treating them to a bowl of mutton soup. Dream. It's such a simple word, but I've not heard anyone say it in a long time. It's as though we are not fit to have dreams the moment we grow up. That's so puzzling. Harrison shook his head and laughed. Who doesn't have dreams? They are just carefully kept inside our hearts. Didn't you aspire to become a writer back then? Is your handwritten autobiography still under your pillow? No way. Harrison blushed. He hastened his pace, and said, "It's just a small thing to me, but to them, it might be their livelihood. If they do have what it takes to move me, what's wrong with helping them?" "I like that," George replied with a smile. "Father, would they really open a mutton restaurant for us?" Moore rubbed his hands and looked at Lydon excitedly. Lydon threw the wood he had into the fire, and looked at Moore as he solemnly said, "Moore, you have to always remember this. There is no free lunch in this world. If our mutton doesn't please the two bosses, they will not help us open the mutton restaurant. Besides, that's really too much to ask for." Him. Moore nodded. He smiled, and continued, "Father, you make delicious mutton. It won't be a problem at all." "I hope so." Lydon looked at the dancing flames, and a similar flame was reflected in his eyes. 2 hours passed by very quickly. The fragrance escaped the constraints of the lid and wafted around. "Smells good." Harrison walked out of the factory. When he smelled the fragrance, his eyes lit up, and he picked up speed. Yet, the fragrance of the meat is quite rich. George's eyes also lit up. It was a little beyond his expectations. When he heard the praises, Lydon was a little relieved. However, he was not completely relaxed. He only lifted the lid when the two arrived. A rich mutton fragrance wafted over together with the steam. There was some gravy, and the mutton gleamed with a beautiful red, increasing one's appetite. However, the moment Harrison and George approached, they frowned a little at the same time. "Sirs, the mutton stew is ready. Please have a try." Lydon put some mutton into 2 ceramic bowls, and passed them to Harrison and George expectantly. "All right, we'll give it a try." Harrison received the bowl with a smile. He used a pair of chopsticks made from sticks to pick up a piece of mutton. The meat was cut into the size of a baby's fist, which was really big compared to the mutton in the mutton soup they had earlier in the morning. The color was really enticing, but the only problem was the rank odor that hid within the fragrance. Harrison took a bite of the mutton. The meat was soft yet not mushy, which made for a very interesting texture. There were various spices added to the stew to bring out the flavor of the mutton. It was way better than any mutton stew he'd had before. However, the rank odor lingered around just like a curse. Even though he was trying very hard to force himself to ignore the smell, Harrison was unable to immerse himself in the mutton dish. George had roughly the same expression. For a professional chowhound, a slight imperfection could be neglected, but a smell that could affect the whole eating experience like this was very difficult to ignore. The two finished the mutton in their bowls. "Sirs, how was it? Is it good enough to open a mutton restaurant?" Moore asked the two expectantly. Since the two bosses had finished the mutton in their bowls, it had to mean that they really liked his father's mutton too. Lydon was expectant with a hint of nervousness. "The mutton is pretty good. It's tastier than all the mutton stews I've had before. The color of the meat is really good, and the texture of the mutton is also great. The spices go together very well, and it was not too strong a taste, allowing the tastiness of the meat to be fully brought out." However, Harrison looked at the two expectant men, and picked his words carefully. The rank odor was not very well treated. That would take off some points from the strength of the mutton. At this standard, even if you had a mutton restaurant, it would be hard to get customers in. How could it be? Moore's face fell instantly. He looked at the piping hot mutton in disbelief. I'm sorry. I'm still not good enough, Lydon quickly apologized, although he was also a little disappointed. I'm sorry. I say what's on my mind, and I have to say what should be said. Harrison felt a little bad, but he had no choice. Why don't we ask Boss Mag? Trajay suggested. Boss Mag? Lydon was puzzled. He suddenly recalled the restaurant they went to in the morning, and asked, could it be the owner of the restaurant we went to in the morning? Yes, he's the owner of Mamie Restaurant. Harrison nodded his head. But he sells mutton. How is it possible that he would tell us his secret? Wouldn't we be snatching his business? Moore commented dejectedly. He was not at all agreeable to Harrison and Trajay's suggestion. It won't be very nice to go over and ask him for his methods. Lydon shook his head as well. They initially had the idea of opening a mutton restaurant when they saw that the mutton sold well there. It would be shameless of them to go up and ask for the recipe. Young friend. Mamie Restaurant is no mutton restaurant. It's a paradise, a food paradise. Harrison rolled his eyes at Moore as though the latter had insulted the sacred land in his heart. Also, Boss Mag would not need to worry about his business being snatched. Don't you know how many customers line up outside the restaurant but aren't able to get a seat? Even if a mutton restaurant were to open beside Mamie Restaurant, the line for his 500 copper coin mutton soup would still be full. That taste and that standard are not something anyone could replicate completely. Boss Mag is a really good person. Besides, we aren't asking him for his recipe. We're just going to ask him for tips on how to get rid of the rank odor on mutton. I believe he would be willing to give you 1 or 2 pointers, Trajay said with a smile. Back then, when my wife had some implications in her pregnancy, Boss Mag specially made soup for more than a month for me to bring back home, and that helped my wife give birth to my daughter smoothly. Lydon and Moore were dumbfounded. They did not expect that restaurant owner to have done such things. But, we aren't even close to him. Wouldn't it be very abrupt for us to just look for him? Lydon was still rather hesitant. He once had a culinary duel with Chef Harris, and after he won, I heard that he really kept his word and took Harrison as his disciple. On top of that, he even taught him how to make the husband and wife lung slice. Do you think there's more to doubt about Boss Mag's character if he's so generous to his competitor? Trajay asked. Then he must be a very magnanimous person, Lydon exclaimed. If he were in Mag's shoes, he might not be able to do that. Let's go. Put some mutton into a bowl, and bring it over to Boss Mag. Let someone more professional do the assessing so that he can give some professional advice. Harrison took out a new bowl, and placed some mutton inside before putting the bowl into a thermal lunch box which was in the horse-drawn carriage. Afterward, he called out to Lydon and Moore, and they went straight to Mamie Restaurant. On the other side, Mag was sitting at the window, enjoying his afternoon break with a pot of tea and a book. Because of the sudden mission he received in the morning, he was currently thinking about how he could get the Orcs' contact info from Harrison without sounding weird. Ding! Just then, the doorbell rang. Mag looked back, and saw Harrison and Trajay standing outside the door with the Orcs. Speaking of the devil. Mag's eyes lit up. He placed his book down on the table, and got up to open the door with a smile. Apologies, Boss Mag. Are we interrupting your break? Harrison looked at Mag apologetically. If it was during the normal days, Mag indeed disliked people disturbing him at non-operating hours. However, Harrison brought the Orcs over to Mag just as the latter was thinking about how to look for them, and that saved him a lot of trouble. Mag quickly smiled, and said, "It's all right. Is there anything I can help you with?" Although they were already right before him, he still had to maintain calm. Everything had to go through its proper process. If someone suddenly became overly nice, something had to be up. It's like this. We enjoyed ourselves with this brother Lydon here during breakfast today, and found out that he's an old shepherd. He is really skilled at making stew mutton, and he and his son have a dream of opening a mutton restaurant. So, we wanted to do our best to help them achieve their dream, and told them to make us a pot of stewed mutton to try. I have to admit, he is really good. The only problem is that George and I both feel that there is some room for improvement. However, both of us only know how to eat, and we can't come up with anything substantial to help them. So we were thinking of letting you try the mutton, and perhaps you can give him some tips. Harrison brought out the lunch box with the mutton. I see. Mag pondered. So this father and son duo wanted to open a mutton restaurant. At the same time, he was secretly glad that there were some flaws in the mutton that Harrison and George weren't satisfied with. Otherwise, his mission would be intercepted by these two kind brothers. In that case, come on in first, Mag said. Everyone entered, and Mag poured them each a cup of tea. Boss Mag, you really know how to enjoy yourself, Harrison complimented when he saw the teapot and book. Boss Mag was a special person indeed. He could whip up delicious food, and was like a god in the kitchen, but gave off the aura of a learned scholar. No wonder all those ladies were so smitten with him. It's just a cup of tea. Mag received the lunch box from Harrison, and opened its lid. A strong mutton fragrance wafted over with the steam. The lunch box could retain heat fairly well, so the mutton was still warm. The fragrance was very strong, but so was the rank odor. Mag had asked Rena to teach him about some of the spices in this world, so he could immediately tell what were the spices added in the mutton. However, there was one very foreign fragrance. It smelled a little like pine, but Mag did not know of the existence of such spice as far as he could remember. He had to admit that these spices were indeed very suitable for mutton stew as they could bring out the fragrance of the mutton. However, it was a pity that none of the spices could actually do anything about the rank odor. The rank odor was preserved completely, and after the long hours of simmering, it was more prominent. Mag poked the mutton gently with his chopsticks, and the latter could easily poke through the mutton without the meat falling apart. There was a very good balance achieved. He picked up a piece of mutton, and looked at it carefully. The mutton was a bright red, and it looked very appetizing. After that, Mag took a bite. Urgh, he spat it out. He seemed to have overestimated himself. Therefore, when he put that mutton into his mouth, he could not control himself, and spat it out when that rank odor assailed him. The restaurant fell into dead silence all of a sudden. Harrison and George glared wide-eyed with shock and a little awkwardness. Lydon's face flushed red. He lowered his head, and did not know where to put his hands. Meanwhile, Moore clenched his fists as he glared at Mag. Mag felt awkward too. That was a little beyond his expectations. That should not have happened. If it had been in his previous life, he would have walked out straight away should any restaurant serve him this kind of mutton. But he could not do it right now. He was in his own restaurant. And this mutton was brought to him especially so that he could give them some pointers knowing their inadequacies. The scenario was slightly different. Mag put the half-eaten meat between his chopsticks back into the bowl, and wiped his mouth with a tissue. He had already regained his composure. He looked at Lydon, and straightforwardly said, "It's indeed a very terrible mutton stew." Harrison and George looked at each other nervously, and suddenly questioned their decision to bring the orcs over to Boss Mag. Lydon saw that Mag had a sincere look, and was not mocking him. He nodded, and said, "Yes, compared to the mutton you make, this is terrible. You don't have to compare it with me. I made mutton soup, while you made mutton stew. They are two completely different dishes." Mag shook his head with a smile, and said, "However, even for mutton stew, if the rank odor is so strong, I doubt anyone could accept it except for those with a very extreme taste preference." "How could that be? Father's mutton is very good," Moore said indignantly as his eyes turned red. Even if this fellow was a very impressive chef, how could he spit out previous mutton just like that? More, you have to respect the person who's teaching you and giving you pointers, Lydon said seriously as he glared at Moore. Yes. Moore's expression changed. He quickly lowered his gaze and stood aside. The child's ignorant. Please, go ahead, Lydon said apologetically. It's all right. My actions were a little rude too. Mag shook his head. When he saw that Lydon was indeed very sincere in learning, he said, the people in Chaos City usually go for lighter tastes. Although people from different races gather here, after hundreds of years of interacting with each other, their tastes have morphed to become slightly lighter. In this case, the spicy hot pot might be able to pique their interest, but the strong smell like the rank odor would not work. It belongs to the kind that people would shun. There's not much problem with the control of fire and choice of spices in your mutton stew, but you did not consciously try to get rid of the rank odor. That caused the fragrance and odor to mix together. The rank odor has already been infused into the meat. I really don't know how to get rid of it, Lydon answered honestly. Harrison, I would have to trouble you to buy the spices and half of the sheep you bought in the morning. On top of that, could you help me get half a kg of ginger and half a kg of orange peels? Mag asked Harrison. Right away. Harrison left immediately, and came back with the ingredients within 15 minutes. It's actually not difficult to get rid of the rank odor, but most people don't know the way. Let me show you. Mag brought the half of a sheep into the kitchen, and Lydon followed behind. Thank you. Lydon did not think that Mag would actually be willing to do a live demonstration. Lydon's and Moore's eyes lit up as they stood at the door of the kitchen, looking at the wide space glimmer as light was reflected on the metal furniture. Compared to their clay pot and stone stove, this place was heaven. Getting rid of the rank odor is a process on its own. You cannot start thinking of a way after the mutton goes into the pot. It starts from when you prepare the meat. Mag pulled out his cleaver, and chopped the mutton into pieces similar in size to Lydon's mutton before putting them into a huge basin to wash. The first step is to chop the mutton up and use clean water to wash the blood away completely. The blood would make the rank odor stronger. Mag poured the basin of water away, and filled it up again for 3 rounds until the water poured out was clean. At this time, we shouldn't be eager to drop the meat into the pot. First, cut some ginger and pour some alcohol in to marinate the mutton. This step helps to remove the rank odor to a certain extent as well, Mag said while he continued his demonstration. Alcohol? Any kind of alcohol? Lydon asked. Although he was not knowledgeable about ginger as well, the alcohol available in the market was more of a problem to him. Mag thought for a while, and said, sheep milk-based alcohol would definitely not do. The usual fruit wines won't do, either. You have to look for cooking alcohol. Such alcohols have the best results in removing rank odor. Food alcohol is quite disgusting, but I know where to get it. You can leave this to me, Harrison said from outside. During the marination, Mag filled the large pot at the side with water, but he was not in a rush to turn the fire up first. Can you cook it right now? Lydon asked. No. We have to wait for the meat to marinate for around 15 minutes before putting it into the cold water. Mag shook his head. Around 15 minutes later, he placed the marinated meat into the pot, and threw a few slices of ginger in before turning the fire on. Rinsing the meat in water is a necessary step. It can force out the impurities and blood in the meat, therefore getting rid of the rank odor. Adding ginger and alcohol had the same effect as marinating the meat, Mag explained as he started to scoop up the impurities floating in the water. You have to get rid of all these impurities. This is an equally important step. Lydon watched quietly at the side as he memorized everything Mag did. After scooping up all the impurities, when there weren't impurities surfacing anymore, Mag closed the fire. After that, he took the mutton out of the pot, and poured out the entire pot of mutton soup. You're going to pour away this pot of rich mutton soup? Lydon could not help but feel pity for the soup. This first pot is filled with rank odor. If we don't pour it away, we won't be able to get rid of the smell completely, Mag said calmly. He used clear water to wash the mutton once more before picking up a piece of mutton to pass to Lydon. Smell this. What changes do you smell? Lydon received the mutton. He wanted to see what was different in the mutton after Mag had done all those steps. He put the meat to his nose and took a whiff. He was stunned. The strong rank odor of the mutton was actually almost completely gone. Instead, there was actually a hint of refreshing smell, making the fragrance of the mutton even stronger. The rank odor is really gone. Lydon was so shocked he did not know what to say. Those steps that Mag did were not difficult, and they were probably just a little complicated, but he did not expect the rank odor could be gotten rid of so cleanly. Boss Mag is Boss Mag indeed. Harrison and George smiled. That's impressive. Moore's face was flushed red. He didn't think that Mag would be so impressive. This is the pre-preparation. After this, we can follow your original steps for your mutton stew. Then, add some dried orange peel into the stew. Mag placed the ready mutton into a bamboo basket, and passed it to Lydon. I have to get ready for lunchtime soon, and I have limited space. You can complete the rest yourself. Taste it after you're done, and if you have any questions, you can look for me again. I am really grateful to you. Lydon received the mutton and bowed deeply to Mag. You're welcome. I believe that you can present mutton to the people in Chaos City in a different way and bring them a delicious eating experience, Mag said with a smile. I will go over to try it myself if you open the restaurant. You can also come to me if you face any difficulties with your opening. Thank you. Thank you. Lydon thanked Mag time and again with more before leaving with Harrison. Sharing is pretty interesting too. Mag sat back down by the window, and watched Harrison's horse-drawn carriage drive off with a smile. Chapter 1710 If this mutton stew isn't popular, I'll eat SAHDR on a handstand. He is a good person and an impressive chef. Lydon nodded his head. His respect and admiration for Mag could not be described with words. Brother Lydon. Let's go back to my place and redo this pot of mutton, should we? Harrison said with anticipation. All right. Lydon nodded. He was also looking forward to the taste of mutton with the rank odor gone. The horse-drawn carriage pulled over in front of Harrison's factory. Everyone got off and scrubbed the pot clean. After that, Lydon and his son started to prepare the mutton with their method. However, on top of their original recipe, they added some dried orange peel into the pot. This time, Harrison and George did not go into the factory. Instead, they brought out 2 chairs and sat by the fire as they waited for the mutton to cook in the pot. After around 2 hours, Lydon took a whiff of the smell and nodded. After that, he extinguished the fire, and lifted the pot lid. A rich mutton fragrance rose with the steam and diffused everywhere. What's that smell? Harrison and George stood up subconsciously as they looked into the pot. The rich fragrance of the meat was exceptionally enticing, and this time, there wasn't even a hint of rank odor. It was purely the fragrance of meat. The meat's fragrance was even more prominent with all the spices added, and had more layers to it, making one salivate. It smells so good. Moore also swallowed his saliva. He once thought that the mutton stew his father made was already the best, and no one could make mutton stew better than that. However, now that the rank odor was gone, he realized the quality of his father's mutton stew had really increased by leaps and bounds. I already can't wait to try. Harrison picked up his bowl, and used his chopsticks to fish out a piece of meat from the pot. The color of the mutton was a little darker than before. The bright red meat was gleaming because of the layer of oil coating on it. The lines and texture on the mutton's surface were very clear, and even the long hours of simmering did not make the meat disintegrate. Harrison took a bite, and his eyes lit up. The texture of the mutton was still as good. It was soft yet not mushy, and tender yet not dry. The meat could be bitten into easily, and the gravy exploded in his mouth the moment he bit into the meat. Suddenly, his taste buds all went into a frenzy. Delicious! This was the ultimate delicacy. The natural spices had heightened the freshness of the mutton, and gave it many layers of flavors. Within these spices, there was also a hint of refreshingness from the orange peel. This was not a strong taste, but it made the mutton refreshing, giving it a different feel. Compared to the mutton that required the taste buds to differentiate between the delectable taste and the rank odor at the same time, this mutton was the best mutton stew that Harrison had ever tried. Even the mutton in Boss Mag's mutton soup might not be as flavorful as this without the dipping sauce. Harrison closed his eyes and chewed on the mutton carefully before swallowing it. After a while, he opened his eyes, looked at the other three, who had faces of anticipation, and gave a thumbs up as he said, "If this mutton stew isn't popular, I'll eat SAHDR on a handstand." Hee, it looks like things are looking up for the mutton restaurant, Jay said with a smile. He put a piece of mutton into his mouth as well. Although the mutton was still a little scalding, Jay could not bear to spit out the meat in his mouth. The flavors wreaked havoc in his mouth, and Jay closed his eyes subconsciously and smiled as he indulged in the joy that the mutton brought. The mutton is very fresh and delicious after the rank odor was removed. There was only that tiny bit of rank odor left. It should have been removed by the dried orange peel. I can't even sense any of the rank odor. If we hadn't been the ones who bought the sheep, I would have suspected that Boss Mag swapped the meat. Jay licked his lips with a smile, and said, "Is there any rice? I think I can finish 3 bowls of rice with this mutton stew." "Go to the canteen to check if there's any rice and bring us a pot," Harrison told the coachman. The latter acknowledged, and quickly walked into the factory building. Lydon looked at Harrison and Jay, who seemed like they could not get enough of the stew, and smiled. This time, the two bosses were really satisfied. "Bro, you guys should try it too. This mutton is really completely different." Harrison stuffed a pair of chopsticks each into Lydon's and Moore's hands. "It's superb." Moore tried a piece, and almost chewed his tongue out. The rich fragrance of the mutton and the delectable taste lingering in his mouth caught him by surprise. They were both mutton stews, but this one was way better and more delicious than the one his father made in the past. The rank odor, which he had neglected in the past, came back to his memories like rat poop, becoming intolerable. Lydon took a bite of the mutton, and was deep in thought for a very long time. "Bro, what's wrong?" Harrison asked with concern, seeing that Lydon was not talking. "Nothing. I just felt a little bad." Lydon shook his head. "In the past, I always thought that I made the best mutton in the tribe, but now I understand that I was just consoling myself. Only a chef like Boss Mag could be considered a chef." "Then you're wrong. It's already very impressive for a chef to be able to do one dish well. An all-rounded chef like Boss Mag is a talent that's hard to come by. Comparing yourself to him would only make it hard for yourself." Harrison shook his head with a smile, and said with a pat on his chest, "I can guarantee that if we joined hands to open a restaurant, this mutton stew would definitely become popular." "I don't think I can." Lydon was still unconfident. "Both of us have faith in your skills, and also in our mouths. Just with this pot of mutton stew, if you can guarantee its quality, both of us will split the cost in half and open a mutton restaurant with you. You can take half of the shares, and we'll share the other half." Jay patted his chest confidently and looked at Harrison. "You're fine with that, right?" "You're thinking exactly what I was thinking. You don't have to worry about opening the restaurant. Just leave it to us. All you need to do is strengthen your culinary skills over this period of time, and ensure that every pot of mutton tastes the same. Then, we can open right away," Harrison said with a nod and a smile. "Father, I think this works. If both of us were to save up for the mutton restaurant, God knows when we'd be able to open it," Moore persuaded, seeing that Lydon was still hesitant. Lydon looked at the 3 encouraging gazes, and hesitated for a while. In the end, he nodded, and said, "Sure. We'll do as the 2 bosses have said, but I can't take half of the shares of the restaurant. This mutton stew could become this good because of Boss Mag's recipe. I'll have to split at least half of my half with him. After breakfast today, Irina brought Babla out of Chaos City to a place where there were thunder and lightning everywhere. After that, they went into a tunnel, and came to this creepy place. Don't be afraid. There really are ghosts here, Irina comforted. Babla was even more flustered. She quickened her pace again, and was almost sticking to Irina's back. The dark tunnel seemed to go on forever, which made Babla increasingly nervous. She suddenly regretted agreeing so quickly last night. She felt way more at ease serving dishes in the restaurant than being here. Afraid? Irina paused and looked back at Babla with a seeming smile. Babla raised her brow. How could she admit that she was afraid in front of her idol? She widened her eyes, and said, "How's that possible? I'm not afraid." "That's great. There's more scary stuff ahead." Irina smiled and continued walking forward. What's up ahead that even big sister Irina would be afraid of? Besides, it even has something to do with ancient spell formations. Babla could not help but think a lot. Bang, bang, bang. Just then, there was a banging sound coming from up ahead in the tunnel. What's that? Babla jumped in front, and hit her head against Irina's back. We're here. Irina smiled and glanced at Babla. The holy light shone at the end of the tunnel to reveal a huge stone door in front of them. At the same time, the horrifying mural was also displayed in front of them. That's scary. Babla only took a look, and her legs went jelly. She grabbed onto Irina's thigh and started shaking. What was that scary-looking monster on the mural? It was huge and terrifying. It was just a glance, but Babla seemed as though she had seen the devil. It was a fear that came from the depths of her soul, making her forget all her shame and pride. It's just the devil, Irina said with a smile as she turned her head to look at Babla, who was hugging her thigh as she shook. Devil! Babla was stunned. She felt her body temperature go down, and did not think that it was just the devil. After leaving the bustling city to come to this deserted place, then going underground a few thousand meters, and marching through a creepy tunnel to this large stone door, combined with the ancient spell formation Irina showed her yesterday, Babla could not help but have a bad feeling about this. Could there be a devil sealed behind this door? Are we going to release it? Babla asked after swallowing. You're half right. There is a devil sealed here, and it's the one on the mural. Irina nodded with a smile. However, we're not here to let it out. Instead, we are going to try to seal it once again in case it escapes from the seal and causes harm like in this mural. Babla heaved a sigh of relief. She did not want to be the henchman of the devil. However, she quickly realized something, and looked at Irina in shock and horror. The devil on the mural is sealed right behind this stone door. Yes. Irina nodded. We're going in. Yes. See, can I reject? I'm not ready yet, Babla shook her head pitifully. No. You're the only one who could understand the ancient scriptures so far. Irina shook her head gently and crouched down slowly. She looked at Babla, and smiled coldly. If you don't look for it now, when it breaks free from the seal, it'll come looking for you. Think about it. Those tentacles filled with eyes squeezing through your room door and wrapping themselves around you, the sticky tentacles, wah, Babla was scared to tears on the spot. So weak? Irina looked at Babla, who was crying, and was stunned. After a while, she smiled and caressed the girl's head as she said, "Let's go, what we need to do is prevent such things from happening. Therefore, we have to seal it before it escapes from the seal so that we can buy ourselves more time before we find a way to kill it." Babla slowly stopped crying with Irina's comforting, and let go of the other party's thigh to slowly stand up. She pressed her lips together with grievance, and said, "Before this, I always thought that the demons were the scariest looking race in this world, but they really look very kind compared to this devil. That's because you haven't seen an ugly demon. There are so many of them who look way worse than this, Irina said with a smile. I'll bring you over to the Demon Islands to take a look when we have the chance, all right? No, no, no. I don't want to. Babla shook her head furiously. She looked at Irina with fear in her eyes. This was not what she imagined her idol to be. Let's go. We'll take a look at the situation inside. Irina pulled out a foldable chair, and swung it on a protruding rock tens of meters above them. After that, the heavy door started to open slowly. Irina walked in first. Babla hesitated for a bit, and followed behind quickly for fear of being left outside. Upon entering, Babla hid quickly behind Irina, and shut her eyes tightly. Krasu and Urian, who had already spent a day here, appeared rather exhausted. Novan was studying the spell formation carefully at the side. It was just the three of them in this huge cave. When they heard the door open, everyone greeted Irina, and then looked at Babla, who was behind. Isn't this a server working for Boss Mag? Why did you bring her here? Krasu asked with bewilderment. Didn't you say to gather all the spell formation masters in Chaos City? Why are there only the three of you? Irina asked. I showed them the spell formation, but it was too old, and no one could understand it. This fellow can affect our psychology without us knowing, and even Krasu almost fell for it, so I didn't bring them in, Urian replied. Yet, this fellow is a little creepy. Krasu nodded with some fear. After that, he asked, why did you bring this lady here? She might just be the only one we could find who could understand the spell formation. Irina shifted to the side, and patted Babla's shoulder as she said, open your eyes. I'll block everything for you. She cried again. I can't do this. Babla covered her face and sobbed. She felt as though the countless red eyes on those waving tentacles were staring right into her soul. The real devil was way more horrifying compared to the mural. That unknown body was huge, with countless tentacles, and there were numerous blood-red eyes on each tentacle. It was as horrifying as it could get. Young lady, don't be scared. There are so many of us here. Yes, we won't be able to defeat it with our combined strength. Krasu looked at Babla with a smile, and said, however, there's still a seal. This fellow won't be able to get out. Silly. I'm trying to strengthen your mental capacity. This fellow here could control a person's mind and spirit. You are the weakest here, and would easily become its target. Irina went up and held Babla's hand. She wiped the tears at the corner of Babla's eyes, and said in a gentle tone, if you can't overcome the fear of looking at it, I'll have to bring you out of here. Babla slowly let go of her hand and looked at Irina, who was looking back at her lovingly. She blushed as she realized that she had been scared to tears twice in a row. In front of Irina. No. I can't let her look down on me. Babla mustered up her courage again, clenched her teeth tightly, and looked in the direction of the seal. Chi-chi, that horrifying octopus monster let out a low growl. Its tentacles kept slapping the seal, causing the golden walls to tremble as though they would shatter any moment. Babla stared at the octopus monster for a while, and felt her fear slowly disappear. It was not because she was brave, but because Irina was speaking softly to her by her ear. Do you see those eyes? If we pick them out and use them as pig's eyes, don't you think we'd save on the pigs? With that, those scary-looking, gleaming red eyes suddenly became just like the pig's eyes on the skewers, and they no longer looked that frightening. Then we'd better not let boss find out about it. Babla nodded as she glanced at the octopus monster pitifully. This lass is rather bold. Urian looked at Babla in shock. He thought that she would be so frightened she wouldn't even open her eyes. However, can she really understand the spell formation? Novan looked at Babla in shock. This young lady looked around 14 to 15 years old, but her talent in spatial magic was extraordinary. At a young age, she was already a 7th-tier spatial magic caster. Yes. But I only saw a corner of the spell formation, so I can't guarantee that I will be able to understand the entire spell formation. I won't even dare to say that I can repair it, Babla replied to Novan. She knew that he was a 10th tier magic caster in Chaos School, so she used a very respectful tone. Novan's eyes lit up. Nodding, he said, "It's all right. I'll walk with you so that you can take a good look at this spell formation. If there's any part you can't understand, tell me and we can study it carefully again." "All right." Babla nodded. She followed Novan, and they started walking around the spell formation to study it. "Where's this lass from? Why can she understand such an ancient spell formation?" Krasu mumbled. "From the moon." Irina looked up calmly. Krasu and Urian were both stunned. "There are really living things up there?" Krasu replied in shock. "It'd never been recorded in history," Urian said with a frown. "She said she came from the Moon Nation, and is the princess of the Moon Nation. She came here accidentally after repairing an ancient spell formation." Irina shrugged slightly. To be honest, she did not really believe that Babla came from the moon as well. She had gone through several ancient elven texts, and it was never recorded in those books that humans existed on the moon. It's not recorded, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. This fellow's existence proved that, didn't it? Krasus said as he pointed at the octopus monster. All records about the ancient devil had been completely erased, and even the ancient scriptures and spell formation were not passed down. However, the Moon Nation had such records. Could the Moon Nation have broken contact with the Norland continent during the same era? Irina speculated. "That's a possibility." Urian nodded slightly. He said in a hoarse voice, "If that's the case, perhaps they have a way to kill these devils or put them back under the seal." The mutton soup which was launched in the morning was well received by the customers. This was not beyond Mag's expectations. After all, even he could not find fault with the mutton soup. Would there be a stricter customer in this world than him? That was not possible. Otherwise, he would not be chosen to be the main character by the system. Of course, he was not proud at all. He looked at the mutton kebabs in his hands as he flipped them around above the fire. If he could redo things, he definitely would not be so strict with those selling mutton kebab. No one knew how much he had suffered last night just to make the perfect kebab that was slightly charred outside and tender on the inside. According to the promise, Mag launched the mutton kebab in the afternoon. The selling price was 1 for 100 copper coins. Although this price was not cheap, as usual, the mutton was made from the black goat of the snowy highlands. It was a rare treasure that even the shepherds of the blue grassland would rarely find. One could only taste the freshly grilled mutton kebab here. 3 sets of Yongzhou fried rice, 5 of rujiamo, 6 of braised chicken and rice, 10 beef kebabs, and another 10 mutton kebabs. Mia walked into the kitchen, and quickly recited the new orders. "All right. Serve these 100 mutton kebabs first." Mag swung the mutton kebabs in his hand towards the long plates that were laid neatly in a row, splitting the kebabs into sets of 20 neatly on the plates. After that, he sprinkled some spring onions on the mutton kebabs, and the plates were quickly taken away by Jane and Elizabeth. "I had mutton soup in the morning, and now I'll have mutton kebab in the afternoon. How delightful!" Abraham looked at the mutton kebab that was brought out from the kitchen, and he rubbed his hands excitedly. "Oh, right, when is Miss Vansa coming to Chaos City again? If she's not here, Hot Pot won't be as fun anymore," Randy, who was sitting in front of Abraham, said. "She probably wouldn't be coming for the next half a year." Abraham shook his head, and lamented, "What a pity. She doesn't even have the chance to try such delicious mutton soup and mutton kebab. Why don't I write her a letter to tell her?" "She wouldn't be able to resist," Randy replied with a smile. "Forget it. I don't even have to write her a letter. She will look through all the gourmet magazines. You, gourmets, would definitely write better than me." Abraham dismissed the thought immediately. Your mutton kebab. Elizabeth served the long plate with 10 mutton kebabs over, and placed it between the two of them. After that, she went to the next table. Wow! This smell! Randy and Abraham leaned forward, and exclaimed almost at the same time. It was so for the mutton soup in the morning, and it seemed that way for the mutton kebab in the afternoon too. I will dig in then. Randy had already reached out for one mutton kebab. For a meatitarian like him, the most blissful thing was to eat meat in huge mouthfuls. This mutton kebab might look small, but it looked really good and full of meat. He had yet to submit his draft for this month. His drafts for the recent months had all been on Mamie Restaurant's food, and he didn't expect to have garnered such positive feedback that caused the sales for the meatitarian magazines to increase by folds. Such a great reaction from the readers caused his pay to shoot up, and he was already one of the top earners among freelance food review writers. Of course, he had not given up his dream of collecting rent every day. Now that he was the supporting pillar for meatitarians writing, the publisher also started to rush him for his drafts more and more. He had even received 7 letters rushing him for drafts, including a 2-meter-long blade. As a food critic with a dream, he would not do something like leeching off a restaurant, but, every time he decided to move on to the next restaurant, Boss Mag would happen to launch a new product, disrupting his plans. This mutton kebab was the prime example. This is really the last time. If this mutton kebab doesn't meet my expectations, I'll leave Chaos City today, without even turning back. Randy said to himself decisively. After that, he took a bite of the mutton kebab. The size of the mutton was similar to the beef kebabs. It was just nice for an adult's mouth, so one would not look too unglamorous with their mouth full, but it was not too little, either. Randy thought that Boss Mag was impressive with that alone. Even an experienced meatitarian like him only had a rough concept of what was the most suitable bite of meat, but he had never thought of the exact size that it should be. The mutton was slightly hot, but it was the perfect temperature for Randy as it could quickly awaken his taste buds, and make them quickly get into the right state. There was a slight peppery and spicy taste on the surface of the mutton, exciting his awakened taste buds. However, compared to the rich sauce of the beef kebab, the spices on the mutton kebab were considered rather light. He bit into the mutton. The fresh juice squirted out under the slightly charred skin, and the taste exploded in his mouth instantly. The perfect use of the spices complemented the mutton well. It was as though an exploding fireball was thrown into his mouth, making his taste buds busy. This taste. It gets better the more you chew on it. It's comparable to beef kebab. Instead, it's even fresher than the beef kebab. Randy was filled with excitement and agitation. That was really incredible. He had tried the mutton kebab made by the shepherds in the grasslands, but even the most skillful and experienced shepherd could not roast such delicious mutton kebab. After mastering the control of the fire, the other elements that could create such a uniquely delicious roast mutton kebab were the perfect combination of spices and the texture and the originally enticing mutton itself. How's it, food critic? Abraham asked with a smile. He had already picked up a skewer of mutton kebab, and could already tell from Randy's expression that this mutton kebab would not disappoint him. Rather spectacular. Randy only uttered 2 words, and could not wait to move on to his second piece of mutton before getting intoxicated with the joy it brought him. It looks like Mamie Restaurant has another delicacy added to its menu. Abraham bit into the mutton, and its taste exploded in his mouth. His eyes lit up immediately. The spices were just bits of decoration. The mutton itself was brought to its best during the roasting process. The sweetness of the meat made it hard to believe that this was mutton. The layers of meat and fat also brought about an enjoyable chewing experience, as it was what caused the mutton not to be dry. I've decided that this week, I will use this mutton kebab for my meatitarian draft. Boss Mag is really my source of inspiration. Now that he had finished one skewer, Randy placed the empty bamboo skewer on the table slowly, as though it was not enough. Look at you, you're spoiling the market, Abraham said with a chuckle as he picked up his second skewer. What I'm worried about is that with the rising popularity of Mamie Restaurant, there will be more food critics coming over for inspiration. That will make things difficult for me, Randy said melancholily as he bit into a piece of mutton. Abraham rolled his eyes, and said, "You food critics should be going around looking for delicacies for consumers, but you keep writing about the same restaurant. That's not very nice. I've gone to various places in the first half of my life. I've threaded roads covering the areas of the 7 largest races. However, if you talk about the delicacies that left an impression on me, there are really more in Mamie Restaurant than everything else added up together." Randy sighed. "Tell me, isn't that infuriating? Then wouldn't the food critic who started from Mamie Restaurant become the chosen one?" Abraham commented as he chewed on his mutton. "That would be simply the luckiest thing. The same dish from the same restaurant could turn into a different story with a different feel if it was written by a different food critic. Therefore, I believe that Mamie Restaurant will become the most well-known restaurant in the entire Norland continent, and will definitely leave a glorious record in history. I just hope right now that Boss Mag's creative recipes can be spread more widely so that the future generation can inherit it," Randy said with a smile. "That's not a bad idea." Abraham looked at Randy in agreement. "Lola, look at that black swan swimming in the lake. Do you think it looks like Boss Mag's roasted duck?" "Your Highness, that's His Majesty's favorite swan," Lola said as she looked at Vanessa, who was leaning on a fence, looking out into the distance. She felt that the princess was rather pitiful. "Humph, royal father would not let me go out after scamming me into returning home. I want to turn his favorite swan into a roasted duck," Vanessa said through gritted teeth. She picked up some snow, and threw it hard at the black swan. The snow scattered in the sky and fell onto the lake as snowflakes, scaring the black swan as it escaped quickly in the opposite direction. "Ha ha ha, look, it's a stupid swan." Vanessa laughed, and seemed a little better. "Your Highness, if we left the palace now, there would be many people following us, and His Majesty wouldn't let you go to Chaos City, so I think we should just stay in the palace," Lola suggested softly. "No. Mamie Restaurant is where I lay in peace. I will never give up on escaping from the palace," Vanessa said with a resolute shake of her head. "Hey? You want to become a food critic?" Lola was a little shocked. Vanessa nodded, and seriously said, "I've read all the female writers in gourmet magazines, and I know all the terms and styles they use. I intend to pen down, in the most honest way, my 49-day trip to Chaos City as a form of memento. But, if His Majesty finds out about this, he might not agree to it. After all, it isn't too nice for the people to find out that you've run away from the palace," Lola said worriedly. Then, Vanessa thought for a while. Her eyes lit up, and she said, "Then I'll give myself a pen name. I'll call myself Vansa. That's good. Although it's just a syllable away, I don't think anyone would think that you wrote them," Lola said with a nod. She heaved a sigh of relief. As long as the princess was not planning to escape the palace, she could rest assured. Vanessa nodded, and excitedly said, "Very well. Let's start from writing the part where we escaped the palace. The mutton kebab is very popular with the customers, and most of them previously swore that they would never eat mutton. Mia came in through the door with a trayful of plates. The law of smell would never be outdated." Mag smiled. How could anyone resist such a perfect mutton kebab? That's strange. The mutton kebab from today tasted even better than yesterday's. "Boss, did you improve the mutton kebab in your dreams last night?" Gina asked Mag. Everyone in the kitchen all turned to look at Mag curiously. Everyone had mutton kebab for lunch today. It was indeed different from the one they had last night. Although last night's mutton kebab was already superb, today's mutton kebab had reached perfection. "Perhaps I had some inspiration today, so I made some minor tweaks," Mag said with a smile. There wasn't so much luck in this world. He only managed to achieve such a perfect mutton kebab through tons of practice. However, he could not tell them. Pretentious. A small word floated past Mag's mind silently, but he did not realize it, because it went too quickly. Boss, you're impressive. Gina looked at Mag with admiration. Mag smiled. After the infinite failures from last night, he was already dying to hack the system into pieces. After the busy lunchtime, Elizabeth used her magic to clean the restaurant, and everyone bade their farewells. Mag went upstairs to change his clothes. After that, he left the city, and went straight to the Thunderstorm Mountains. He was a little worried about the situation there. The seal on the Great Old One was not too stable, so it would be terrible if it escaped. A servant scrambled into a lavish bedroom as he agitatedly shouted, "Young master! Young master!" Miss Shirley appeared in Mamie restaurant again. Constantine, who was lying in bed, bolted right up. He looked wide-eyed at the servant, and agitatedly said, "Why, you are talking about Miss Shirley? It's her. It really is her. I saw her walk out of Mamie restaurant," the servant said resolutely with a nod. "Quick, help me up. Cough, cough. I'm going to Mamie restaurant right now." Constantine grabbed the edge of the bed as he tried to get up, but his entire body was shaking. "Young master, there's no use going now. Mamie restaurant has already closed. Let's get something to eat first, get changed, wash up, and go over at night." The servant supported Constantine, and looked at him as he said, "If you go looking like this, I'm afraid that when Miss Shirley sees you..." Constantine looked at his reflection in the bronze mirror. His suave appearance was reduced to that of a thin and disheveled old man with yellowed skin. His current looks disgusted even himself, much less Miss Shirley. "I want to eat. Get me food." Constantine sat on the chair at the side with the help of the servant. With a glow in his eyes, he said, "Hire a barber. I'm going to have a makeover." "All right. Have some water and wait just a while." The servant poured him some water merrily before running out of the door. First, he went to the kitchen to order a feast for their young master before running over to the master's courtyard. Before even going through the door, he was already shouting, "Master! Master! Young master is eating! Young master is willing to eat!" Kurt, who was teasing maids, quickly stopped. However, the moment he heard the servant's words, he stood up happily, and asked the panting servant, that wastrel had finally thought things through. "No, it's Miss Shirley. She's back," that servant stuttered as he gasped for air. "Bastard! Useless fool!" Kurt smashed the teapot at the side as his face flushed red with anger. "Say, how many boyfriends did you have? 5? Or 6? I'm not too sure. So how many is it?" "None. Tisk. How pitiful. Hee, cut it out." Angela pressed her cap down and turned to the side, pretending to look at the scenery afar, but was actually eavesdropping on the two succubi who were teasing each other. This was the first time she got close to her compatriots ever since she reached Chaos City. However, the difference with everywhere else was that the succubi in Chaos City were also protected by the law. They were not oppressed, nor were they enslaved. Therefore, this time, she did not choose to reveal her identity straight away. Instead, she decided to conceal her identity and eavesdrop. "I can't believe that the succubi in Chaos City are so pure. She didn't even have a single boyfriend. Looks like their lives are very pure indeed," Angela thought to herself. "You don't like the young master from the Bacra family? Don't even mention it. He's worse than the others before him. He ended before I could feel anything. I dumped him straight away. Sigh, don't set your expectations so high. Such wealthy young masters are hard to come by. Earn a little more right now so you can find someone good in the future." "Why do I have to find someone good? They didn't even trifle with me. We should look for scumbags and play with each other's feelings. That's a perfect match. Sis, I love your character. Let's go. We still have to go to that tavern to fish for rich guys today. Angela looked at the two succubi walking away as they swayed their hips while she stood alone in the howling wind. No, I can't just wait for things to happen. I must do something. Camilla picked herself up and hung upside down on the roof as she paced around. Her eyes suddenly lit up, and she mumbled to herself, the gift I gave previously was such a failure. I'm going to do it again. Since Miss Gloria likes to make clothes, I'll make her some myself. Yes. That's it. Camilla watched as Gloria did her finishing touches, and could not help but start imagining the latter put on the clothes she made. Gloria would definitely be very touched, and then she would be successfully tamed. I'm such a genius. Camilla smiled proudly. She looked at Gloria again, and disappeared in a puff of black smoke. Was there something outside just now? Gloria turned back to look out of the window for a while, but there was nothing outside. It's still early. I will go to the factory first. The last batch of winter wear should be ready. After a while longer, the weather will warm up, and we can launch the spring collection. We have to start production early. Gloria put on her down jacket, and walked out of the door. Mars, who was waiting at the door, received her purse and gave her a verbal report as he followed behind her. Cyril was neglected because of what happened, and Gloria was now seen as the popular candidate for the heir to the Moreton family. What followed after was more work and strict expectations. Now that Cyril was no longer her opponent, her point of comparison became Sheer, who was also the oldest granddaughter who inherited her family business. They were of similar age, and were both cross-generation inheritors. Both of them were also very good-looking, so people would always like to compare them. Are there any movements from Cyril? Gloria asked casually while boarding a horse-drawn carriage. Cyril is staying at home obediently. He would always greet Master in the morning and at night. It did seem that he had repented. Madame Aviva, Hertie, and Herney have gone to Madame twice to make a fuss about their limited monthly pocket money, Mars replied. Now he knows to get his wife and daughters to kick up a fuss. However, Grandma dotes on them. This time, without grandfather's consent, I doubt their restrictions would be lifted anytime soon, Gloria scoffed. Back then, Gloria's family's monthly allowance was not even 5,000 copper coins. As long as our partnership with Mr. Mag goes smoothly, you will be able to revive the Moreton family's textile industry and keep it under blue suede. If anything happened to the inheritance, you would be able to stand on your own with these two assets. Mr. Mag admired Gloria. Although his young mistress had started out a little later than Miss Sheer, ever since she set her heart on entering the business field, the decisions that she had made were all praiseworthy. Blue suede had unlimited potential, and the partnership with Mr. Mag might cause a revolutionary change in Norland Continent's textile industry. I will hold on tight to whatever's mine. At least I won't let it land in the hands of others, Gloria said with a smile. She brushed some hair away from her face, and lifted a corner of the carriage's curtain to look out and allow the wind to blow at her face. What's the situation like? Mag asked as he appeared at the cave and looked at the people surrounding the spell formation. Whoa! Bablat, who was absorbed in studying the picture, almost jumped as she stared wide-eyed at Mag, who appeared out of nowhere. The seal is getting weaker. Judging from this speed, we have around 7 days left. If we can't strengthen the seal in 7 days, it might be able to break through the seal, Irina said solemnly as she walked over. Alex, I have a piece of good news and a piece of bad news. Which one do you want to hear? Krasil looked at Mag, and before the latter could reply, the former smilingly answered, the bad news is that we still haven't figured out the spell formation. The good news is this young lady is rather impressive. She has already helped Novan understand the rough meaning of this formation. Otherwise, we would really have to depend on luck to strengthen the formation. He's Alex? Big Sister Irina's man? He is, rather good looking. Babla looked at Mag in shock upon hearing that. This was the first time she saw Alex without a mask, and it was rather different from what she imagined. Not bad, young lady, Mag told Babla. This lass had not let him down indeed. I am Babla. I'm not some young lady, Babla said seriously as she stood up a little straighter to make herself seem taller. All right, young lady Babla, thank you, Mag said with a smile. That'll do too. Babla rolled her eyes. In any case, she was unable to outfight him, so she could only continue deciphering the spell formation quietly. When she found out about the importance of this spell formation, she carried the entire burden of saving the world on her own shoulders. That was way more meaningful than serving dishes in the restaurant. Therefore, she was still very serious even if deciphering a rune with thousands of characters was very monotonous and troublesome. Mag walked one round around the seal. Perhaps it was because he had chopped off a part of the octopus monster, but ever since he appeared in the cave, the octopus monster kept staring at him, and was waving its thick tentacles furiously. If it were not for the seal, it would have already gone at Mag. Stop looking. I've already made your tentacle into teppanyaki. It tastes quite good, Mag said with a smile. Chi, the octopus monster flared up all of a sudden. Its numerous tentacles dashed towards Mag, causing the spell formation to flicker as though it would shatter any time. Ding! The results are out for the unknown organism. Would the host like to receive it now? Just then, the system's notification rang in Mag's head. Chapter 1716 The Great Old One's Edibility Research. You're late means you're late. Don't make excuses. Mag pursed his lips. He had already opened that test report in his mind. This test report was rather professional. Be it the format, the contents, or the testing methods, they all demonstrated the system's attention to details. First and foremost, the research results on its edibility. Research shows that after washing away the surface mucus and blanching the tentacles of this species, it could be instantly cooked with methods such as stir-frying, stewing, and deep frying. Its texture and taste are better than normal octopus tentacles, and it is an excellent ingredient. Meanwhile, the eyeball on tentacles has a rather complicated internal structure. It is rich in various nutrients, and contains many elements that are beneficial to the human body. Eating it could improve a variety of eye problems. In summary, this species' tentacle has a very strong plasticity and the characteristics of rapid regeneration. It's an excellent ingredient for octopus tentacle and roasted octopus eye. Mag stared at that hardcore report and frowned. He felt that things did not seem so simple. Turning a great old one's report into an ingredients research report. This was really. However, it looks rather good. When can we test on the octopus tentacle that we previously froze? Mag seriously considered it before rolling his eyes. We do have the cooking methods, but our focus now wasn't to eat it, right? It's to make sure that we do not get eaten by it. The test report was very long, and the various experiments done by the system were listed in detail, including the use of various methods to conduct damage experiments on it. However, the final conclusion was, after countless experiments done by this system, it has been determined that physical damage can only weaken its strength mildly. Among all the magical elements, only the light element has a certain restraining effect on it, but it needs to achieve a similar value before it can exterminate it completely. Mag roughly read through this test report. Unfortunately, according to the system's tests, he couldn't find any methods to restrain it other than the holy light magic. This conclusion is a little terrible. Mag frowned. The only benefit of this conclusion was that it prevented Mag and the rest from making some pointless attempts. Although this system couldn't find a method to kill this species yet, the research shows that if physical damage is being done to it for a long time, and after the accumulation of weakening, it would cause an irrecoverable injury to that species. The system's voice sounded. What do you mean by that? Mag frowned. He couldn't quite understand the system's meaning. After you all are done with the sealing and the fortification, this system will build an octopus tentacle processing plant within the region that is sealed up. You're impressive. Mag gave it a thumbs up and praised it from the bottom of his heart. Mag continued to ask, how long will this process take? This system has analyzed this species' cell division limit. The experiment is not over yet, so the specific time has not yet been determined. It should be over 100 years. Mag raised his eyebrows. 100 years was a very long period of time for the humans, but for the great old ones who had existed for ages. Using 100 years to kill it wasn't a very long time. Mag began, we definitely are not able to use up so many octopus tentacles at Mamie Restaurant alone. If you don't want to waste these octopus tentacles, why don't we form a partnership and set up a professional company that sells octopus tentacles? We can let the natives on the Norland continent join in the great cause of eating up the great old ones. According to this system's calculations, this octopus tentacle processing plant can produce approximately 100 tons daily, and this number will continue to grow in the future. This indeed isn't an amount that the Mamie Restaurant can use up, the system lamented. But, selling ingredients does not meet the positioning of the system, and of course it meets the positioning. See, I came to this world as a candidate for the god of cookery to bring a beam of light to this world's culinary world which was like a desert. I'm supposed to spread the seeds of scrumptiousness. But do you think the people here are able to obtain those ingredients that Mamie Restaurant uses? Such a setting was problematic right from the start. Take that mutton soup for example. I can cook a pot of delicious soup without having to process the rank odor. However, if those normal sheep do not go through a few complicated procedures, their rank odor will be enough to destroy a pot of soup and meat. However, if we could sell these octopus tentacles that we are going to discard to these ordinary people at a reasonable price, while I share the recipe of cooking this octopus tentacle with the public, then wouldn't we have successfully introduced this dish into the ordinary folks' homes? Mag said plausibly. It sounds rather reasonable, the system lamented as it began to waver. We will split the profits 30/70ths. Aren't those farms of yours making a loss now? As long as this octopus tentacle becomes people's favorite dish, you don't have to worry about money again, right? Mag continued smilingly. I'll take 70, while you take 30. Tisk, tisk. Do we still need to care about such stuff with our relationship? Think about it, what's the most important thing when it comes to selling a product? The product's quality. See, you don't know about marketing at all. To sell a product, you need to have an outstanding salesperson. A truly formidable salesperson could sell a piece of rock as if it was a piece of gold. Therefore, the salesperson's commission is the highest in the product chain. If I don't help you sell these octopus tentacles, they could only be used as fertilizer in the ground. But after going through my hands, it would become a valuable product. So, do you agree that I should get 70%? That sounds rather legitimate. That's right. Come, let's sign the contract first. After your factory is ready for production, I will set up the sales channel for you. We, father and son, will be invincible working together. Great, great, great. Mag had successfully fooled the system into signing the contract. He then left the underground cave with Irina. He was very happy to promote the octopus tentacle dishes. He could elevate the quality of living of all the people on the Norland continent while making money at the same time, so why not? Although the system had agreed to weaken the great old one's power through the process of cutting, 100 years was still too long. He couldn't pin all his hopes onto the octopus tentacle factory. He had to think of some other methods. After leaving the underground cave, Mag said to Irina, the usual methods have no effects on this octopus monster. Only your holy light can cause certain damage to it, but given your current power, you won't be able to kill it completely. Chapter 1717 Do you have the big G you want to eat that fellow? Irina furrowed her delicate eyebrows. She felt disgusted as soon as she thought of that sticky octopus monster with eyes all over its body, let alone when considering eating it. Mag nodded. Yes. After my experiments, I know that this octopus monster is, in fact, an excellent ingredient, and it has a regenerative characteristic. The first batch of tentacles might taste slightly subpar, but the newly grown tentacles taste excellent. It tastes way better and fresher than the usual seafood. The system had grown a semi-finished product of the great old one with that severed tentacle, and used it to conduct a huge number of hardcore testings. So, you've already eaten it. Irina's expression became a little complicated, and she took half a step back instinctively. As a qualified chef, my exploration of ingredients is never-ending, Mag calmly replied. Of course, he couldn't tell Irina the existence of the system. Irina pondered seriously before asking, then, have you explored sheep's dung before? Mag shook his head. I have never explored sheep's dung before, but the cat poop coffee one is not bad. Therefore, the reason why Ugly Duckling's toilet is so clean every day, Irina took another step back with gradually widening eyes. Mag looked at Irina, who had an increasingly frightened expression, and suddenly realized that she might have misunderstood. He quickly waved his hands, and said, no. Ugly Duckling's toilet is completely cleaned automatically. This has nothing to do with me. This cat poop coffee all right. I will keep the matter of you eating cat poop a secret for you, Irina interrupted Mag with a complicated expression. Thank you, Mag said helplessly. Now is not the time to discuss whether this octopus monster can be eaten or not. You said only my holy light magic can cause substantial harm to it, but its intensity isn't strong enough. However, I'm already the only great light magic caster on the Norland continent. Does this mean that we have no ways to deal with it? Irina asked with furrowed brows. In the light of the present situation, yes. Mag nodded. Then, how was its head cut off? And where is the rest of the body sealed? This, Mag was slightly stunned. That octopus monster's head was as big as a small hill, so its body naturally had to be even more enormous. So how did those people in the past cut its head off and seal it? Perhaps 10th tier isn't the real upper limit? There were magic casters and powerhouses beyond the 10th tier on the Norland continent in the past, and they sliced and sealed up these devils. Mag's thinking began to clear up slowly. Therefore, the gods in all the races' legends are not just legends. They could be a group of top powerhouses that had really existed then. Irina's eyes slowly lit up too. Mag nodded. If the goddess of light really existed, and she was able to establish a connection with you through the spells and bestow the power of holy light upon you, then her power would naturally be above the 10th tier. But where are we going to find these gods and get them to help us kill or seal again these devils who are about to escape soon? Mag shook his head. We're still unable to ascertain that these gods are immortal, and could survive for ages like the devils, and we don't know how we can ask them to help, either. We've discussed this problem before. Perhaps I should make a trip back to the Wind Forest. Hey! Regarding the goddess of life, the Elven Queen might know some secrets that others have no idea about, Irina calmly said. And the Tree of Life should be the most relevant existence to the goddess of life. After some pondering, Mag nodded and said, I will get Ozzy to bring you there. Irina nodded slightly. Great. I'll set off tonight, and return by tomorrow morning. Be careful. Helena hates you the most now, said Mag. If I had the chance, I would really like to hack her. Irina made a knife gesture with her hand. Mag returned to the restaurant, and poured himself a cup of water. He sat by the window and pondered. Searching hard for the ancient gods was one method, while figuring how to break through the 10th tier upper limit and save the world was another method. Of course, his most crucial task now was to restore his power to 10th tier before he could think about how to break through the 10th tier. System, I felt that we're veering off the main objective here. I'm obviously just a reserve for the god of cookery, so why did the task of saving the world fall onto me? Could you please correct this world's normal development trend? For example, getting rid of those extra great old ones so I could focus on being a good chef again. Mag dissed in his mind. The host's request is not within this system's scope of functions, answered the system calmly. Mag began to bluff. Why don't you consult with your superior? If this world is destroyed or descends into war, I will have no way to complete my ultimate task of promoting scrumptious food in this world, either. In order not to let my superiors suspect my work performance, this system will never do such a thing. Do you think I have the big G too? The system answered rather proudly. You might not have it, but I do. Isn't it just a big G? I'll buy it for you. Haha. I'm sorry, but your big G cannot enter the Forbidden City. 3 avoided tourists and enjoyed the palace. The post went viral and drew tens of thousands of comments. The Palace Museum, which runs the 600-year-old landmark, later apologized, confirming that a car had been allowed to enter the complex on Monday last week when it was closed to the public. Mag was puzzled over the system's answer. That's all you need to know. Otherwise, this system might be resolved too. Before Mag could ask, the system already stopped him from doing so. Mag frowned slightly as he discovered that things weren't simple. An existence that even the system dared not discuss. Hence, he could only pretend not to know anything, and not ask any questions. Of course, the plan of making a higher-level existence get rid of the great old ones had failed. This lousy system was rather useless. Shortly after, Camilla and the ladies arrived at the restaurant one by one, and the busy operation period started again. Young master, look. Is that Miss Shirley? A servant said softly as he held up Constantine. Don't hold me. I can manage by myself. Constantine shook away the servant's hand. He stared at the beautiful young maiden standing behind Mag at the restaurant's entrance with glistening eyes. That was the maiden whom he had been missing day and night, and he finally saw her again. He was overwhelmed by complex emotions, and he wished he could rush over to embrace her tightly in his arms. He wanted to tell her how much he missed her. However, the self-cultivation of a gentleman made him restrain himself, and he straightened his clothes. Although the clothes became loose due to his rapid weight loss, it didn't diminish his aura. He slowly proceeded forward with the line. When he finally reached the restaurant's entrance and stood in front of Shirley, he suppressed his overwhelming emotions, and stared at Shirley lovingly. Constantine's story had become a much-told tale in Mamie restaurant recently. This Casanova had become a devoted prince whom everyone praised. The male lead and female lead were meeting again today, so many people were watching this scene with anticipation. One kopi luwak is a coffee that consists of partially digested coffee cherries, which have been eaten and defecated by the Asian palm civet cat, Paradoxurus hermaphroditus. It is also called civet cat coffee. The cherries are fermented as they pass through a civet's intestines, and after being defecated with other fecal matter, they are collected. 2 Mercedes G-Class. 3 A Chinese woman who drove her luxury SUV into Beijing's Forbidden City and posted pictures online has prompted a public search for information about her, while state media called for the case to be investigated. The photos showing 2 women standing in front of a Mercedes G-Wagon parked in the World Heritage Site, which banned vehicles in 2013, were posted on microblog site Weibo on Friday, January 17, 2020 under the name Luxio Baoll. It was captioned, "As it is closed on Monday, we." Chapter 1718 Uncle, it seems like you aren't even the backup. He's devoted. Ah, it's so touching. If a man treats me like that, I will definitely fall deeply in love with him. I didn't expect young Master Constantine, who was deemed a Casanova, would have such a devoted side. The maidens at the sides were all touched by him. A rich young master was reduced to such a state for the woman he loved. It was just like a romance novel. The ladies from the restaurant looked at Constantine. They remembered this man who often came to ask if Shirley was going to come back. Shirley looked at Constantine with furrowed brows, and puzzledly asked, "You are?" The restaurant fell into dead silence all of a sudden. The maidens, who were expecting a lovers' reunion, stared at Shirley with disbelief with wide eyes. Meanwhile, the men were looking at Constantine with pity. That was the most tragic experience for a man. Yes. Even though Constantine had demonstrated his devotion, and even descended into a weakened state as a lovesick man, nobody had expected that he wasn't just a lovesick man, he was even a pathetic man. Shirley actually had no idea who he was. Therefore, while he wasted himself and descended into such a pathetic state for her during this time, it was all just one-sided. The other party had no idea about that at all. She didn't even know about his existence. This is so tragic. Mag sighed. He wasn't too surprised about this ending. Some people always like to be self-indulgent and get all emotional without considering the actual situation. They always felt that if they were Romeo, the other party had to be Juliet. They thought they were great to starve themselves while they pined for the other party, and the other party would be touched, and decide to marry them when they saw their pathetic state. Mag was sympathetic towards Constantine. After all, the latter would have never expected that the maiden who he liked was a drag queen. It would be good if this marriage never happened. If it did happen, then nobody knew who would be *ing whom on the wedding night. Tisk. The silent air and Constantine, who looked like he had been struck by lightning, made the atmosphere a little weird. People were all looking at Constantine with sympathy. Although this ending was rather unexpected, it was closer to what usually happened to ordinary people. "Uncle, it seems like you aren't even the backup," Amy reminded Constantine softly at the side while licking an ice cream. Crack! Everyone seemed to hear the sound of a heartbreak. Even though he wanted to fly into a rage, leave right away, or even kill himself right on the spot, Constantine felt his heart melt again when he saw Shirley's pure and innocent face. He began to reproach himself. Shirley looked at Constantine with a frown and a puzzled and wary expression. This fellow looked a little perverted. But why do they look like they're expecting us to get together? It's so gross. I need to get away from him. How can I frighten Miss Shirley? All this isn't her fault. She's so lovely, and deserves to be pampered. Constantine thought as he reproached himself inwardly. He swiftly adjusted his mentality, and looked at Shirley lovingly again as he extended his right hand, and said, "Hello, Miss Shirley. Let's get to know each other again. I am Constantine." Shirley flicked a glance at his hand, and coldly answered, "Oh." Constantine retracted his hand awkwardly as he happily thought, "It's fine. Beautiful maidens always have a strong personality, let alone Miss Shirley. At least she will remember my name now. Suckers get nothing." Mag gave Constantine a piteous look. Some people would never treasure what they got easily while they pined for what they could never get. Constantine's small intrusion didn't diminish the customers' enthusiasm for delicious food. After Constantine took his seat, the line continued to file into the restaurant, and the customers began to place their orders. The servant sat opposite Constantine. He observed Constantine's expression, and smilingly said, "Young master, that's a great improvement. This must be Miss Shirley's test for you, and you have accepted the challenge calmly. You must have left a beautiful and gentlemanly image in her heart." "That sounds right now that you mention it." Constantine's eyes lit up, and he nodded thoughtfully. "That's right, so you must eat properly to nourish your body back to health, and regain your past handsome self. Otherwise, Miss Shirley might not be interested in you." The servant quickly smiled while he wiped off his sweat secretly. It was fortunate that his young master wasn't very smart whenever Miss Shirley was mentioned. If he did stupid things after he returned home because of this, he would be skinned by master. "You sound very reasonable. Such a body is indeed unworthy of Miss Shirley." Constantine nodded as he scanned through the menu, and then said, "I want to order a helping of Buddha jumps over the wall, a helping of red braised pork, and a helping of black pepper steak." "Sure. I will order them for you shortly, that servant replied with a smile. This was the first time that the young master had taken the initiative to eat more. It was a good start. Gloria stepped off the horse-drawn carriage. As she looked at the long line in front of the entrance, she lamented, "It's as crowded as usual. Nobody can resist the charm of scrumptious food, just like with the clothes from blue suede," Mars said with a smile. Gloria nodded in agreement. Yes. Mr. Mag not only satisfied the women's taste buds, he even designed clothes that they went crazy for. He's truly an amazing man. Yes. Mars threw a glance at Gloria, who had an upward smile on her lips. Let's go. We might miss out on tonight's numbers if we are late. Gloria hastened her steps as she walked towards the end of the line. I brought along the report from the last several days. Do you want to go through it while we're lining up? Mars softly asked as he caught up with her. No, I read it when I returned home. Gloria nodded slightly and smiled. It's fun to line up at Mamie restaurant too, isn't it? Mars looked at the middle-aged men, who were arguing over whether the roast mutton kebab or roast beef kebab was the king of the kebabs, and kept the document with a smile. It really wasn't an appropriate occasion to read documents. However, it seemed like young mistress would have to stay up tonight again. Vivian didn't drink beer, but that didn't stop her from eating grilled fish and grilled items. She would drink a sip of the fruit juice that she brought along whenever it was too spicy. She still managed to enjoy the meal. Are you really not going home for the new year? Vivian, who was holding a roast mutton kebab, asked Luna, who was sitting across from her while slowly removing the fish bones. The new school building is almost ready, and I have to make sure that the children can start school in the new year. Although it's almost going to be the new year soon, I still have plenty to do. Luna shook her head as she placed the fish meat into her mouth, and smiled with satisfaction. Furthermore, I've just returned to Rodo a while ago, so it's fine not to go back for the new year. You just like to burden yourself with all the tasks. Vivian rolled her eyes at her. She knew Luna's character very well, so she didn't try to talk the other woman out of it. What about you? How do you feel about yesterday's test? Do you think you will make it to the interview? Luna asked smilingly. There's definitely no problem for me to make it to the interview. Who am I? I am Vivian, okay, Vivian replied with her mouth full as she took a big bite of the mutton kebab. However, she didn't look as confident as she sounded. Luna smilingly said, I heard there were more people taking part in this year's written test than in the previous years. But aren't they looking for more teachers this year? Vivian emphasized. Due to the mass recruitment, the Chaos School was recruiting over 100 teachers this time. The number was far bigger than in the previous 3 years. I'm just teasing you, Luna said with a smile. Vivian suddenly got close to her, and softly asked, however, did you make any progress with Boss Mag recently? What progress? Luna blushed and glared at Vivian. Don't talk nonsense. Mr. Mag is an upright man. I didn't say that he's indecent, but you two are still connected by the little boss. Isn't it going to be the term end party in 2 days? Did you find a chance to talk to him about the party? Vivian continued to press on the issue. Mr. Mag should be attending the party. Luna stole a glance at the kitchen. Perhaps Mr. Mag was too busy lately, but she rarely got to see him recently. That's great. It's an opportunity. After the party is over, can I stuff your mouth with this grilled fish? Luna placed a big piece of grilled fish in Vivian's bowl with exasperation. All right, I will eat my fish quietly, and not worry for our teacher Luna. Vivian shrugged and continued to eat the fish. Luna's gaze went past Vivian's shoulder, and landed on the busy figure in the kitchen. That distinct profile, lean yet muscular body, and his smooth movements. Excuse me, excuse me. Luna suddenly realized her gaze was too direct and eager. She quickly retracted her gaze, and lowered her head to eat, but her face was burning bright red. Vivian glanced at Luna and curled her lips in a smile. And her friend was still saying she didn't like Mag. It was obvious that she liked him a lot. Amy came to Luna with Ugly Duckling in her arms, and smilingly said, "Teacher Luna, you're here eating grilled fish with big sister Vivian." "Yes." Luna looked up and smiled at Amy gently. She reached out to pat Amy's head, and then pinched Ugly Duckling's chubby cheeks. "I haven't seen you for days, little Amy." "I'm sorry. It's because I don't know where my teachers have gone, so I didn't go to school. I went to the magic potion shop next door to learn magic from big sister Zixie." Amy shrugged, and helplessly said, "Even the teachers play truant now." Luna and Vivian laughed as they were amused by the little one's animated expressions and actions. "Little Amy, can you let me hug your fat cat? I have never hugged such a fat cat before." Vivian was eyeing Ugly Duckling in Amy's arms greedily. "Meow." Ugly Duckling turned its head to the other side while rolling its eyes at her disdainfully. "Wow, it even looks so cute when it rolls its eyes." Vivian had stars in her eyes. "Big sister Vivian, do you like Ugly Duckling?" Amy looked at Vivian, a little dubious. "Oh, yes." Vivian nodded and looked at her with anticipation. This adorable fat cat had never looked at her properly every time she came for her meal. However, the more it behaved like that, the more she wanted to squash it and snuggle it in her arms. This roly-poly fat cat with exquisite golden fur was super cute. "Okay. All right. I'll let you play with it for a while." Amy passed Ugly Duckling over. "Whoa, it's so soft and warm." Vivian took Ugly Duckling carefully. She felt as if she was given a soft and boneless warm pillow. The golden fur was even softer than the best minx fur. It was so soft in her arms she felt that her heart was going to melt. She could only hug it carefully against her bosom. Meow. Ugly Duckling, which was a little resistant at first, began to rub its head against the maiden's bosom apologetically as it closed its eyes and meowed. The surrounding men all looked at them, and lamented, "My life isn't even comparable to a cat's." "Whoa, so cute." Vivian smiled lovingly, and then she hugged Ugly Duckling's fat face, and kissed on its forehead. Ugly Duckling suddenly opened its eyes, and stared at Vivian fearfully before it slowly turned its head towards Amy with an innocent and offended expression. "I am despised by a cat again." Vivian blinked. "Big sister Vivian, is that liking it? You're just after its body." Amy took Ugly Duckling back from Vivian's arms, and used her sleeve to wipe its forehead as she consoled it. "It's fine, Ugly Duckling. I won't despise you even if you have lost your innocence. You are still my Ugly Duckling. Teacher Luna, enjoy your meal. I'm off to play." Amy waved at Luna before she carried Ugly Duckling away. Did you see that cat's expression? That shocked and disdainful expression. I, Vivian, gave it my precious young maiden's kiss, and that cat despised it." Vivian said with disbelief as she looked at Luna, who was covering her mouth and laughing away. Luna finally stopped laughing, and pointed at the corner of her lips. "I think you should have wiped your mouth before you kissed it." Vivian touched her lips, and her hand was stained with red oil immediately. She quickly lowered her head and continued to eat the grilled fish. "The dishes are all served. I appreciate all your help." Mag put down the frying wok, and heaved a breath of relief. All of them who were focused and nervous relaxed too. Although they all had very strong power, Mamie Restaurant's work intensity still made them a little tired. "When will Babla be back?" "I miss her serving the dishes with magic," Mia said to Mag with a hint of tiredness in her expression. Anna nodded, and said, "Yes. Big sister Babla can serve half of the dishes alone. The dish serving efficiency has decreased a lot when she's around." Irina had brought Babla away, and nobody knew where they had gone. "She might not be able to return soon." "Princess Irina didn't tell me the exact situation, either." Mag shook his head, and pushed the blame to Irina. Everyone nodded after hearing that. "Irina didn't come for dinner tonight," and she didn't return to the restaurant, either, so they had nobody to ask. Mag removed his apron, and poured a glass of water for himself. He met Gloria's gaze when he walked out of the kitchen. "Mr. Mag." Gloria got up and smiled at him. Mag could see from her gaze that she had specially come to look for him tonight, so he walked over and nodded. "Miss Gloria." There were only 2 or 3 tables of customers left in the restaurant now, and it was only a couple of minutes before the restaurant closed. Hence, they all paid their bills and left. "I'm sorry to disturb you after you ended your busy workday. There are some collaboration problems at the textile factory that I need to clarify with you," Gloria said to Mag in a lowered voice. "How about this? Let's go talk in the study. They can go back and rest early after they clean up the restaurant," Mag said, and then informed Mia and the rest before bringing Gloria and Mars to the study. Mag gestured to Gloria and Mars to sit down, and directly asked, "Have you completed the restructuring of the sales chain?" "Yes. We've already simplified the original fabric distribution chain. We've kept the complete elite core sales team, and are already starting to promote the sales of the fabric." Gloria nodded slightly. "I came over today to confirm with Mr. Mag the amount and the time for the handover of the first batch of cotton yarn so that we could make arrangements for the next step's work. I will hand over the first batch 3 days later." "The amount is 10,000 bolts, answered Mag. 10,000 bolts. Shock appeared on Gloria's face. "Are you sure you can hand over 10,000 bolts in 3 days? Mars was shocked too. One had to know that Mag's textile factory was only built over 1 month ago. Not to mention the time needed for the textile workers to learn and familiarize themselves with their jobs. 10,000 bolts of cloth was the 6 months' output of all Moreton family's textile workshops combined. Yes. Is it too little? Mag knocked on the table embarrassedly as he explained, "Because the factory was just set up, the output is not maximized yet. I think we should be able to increase the output a little more next month." "The output is not maximized yet. And it can still increase." Mars gulped, and he looked at Mag as if the latter was someone beyond his wildest imagination. "So this is why Mr. Mag dares to offer a price that is way lower than the market price." Gloria pondered before she quickly shook her head. "Mr. Mag's textile factory's output is astonishing. 10,000 bolts of cotton will take our sales team some time to digest. However, in order to catch up with Mr. Mag's factory's output, I will expand our sales team immediately. We will try our best to snatch up bigger market shares everywhere. Happy collaboration." Mag shook Gloria's hand with a smile before he stood up, and said, "Amy is about to sleep, and I need to tell her a bedtime story, so I won't ask you two to stay. Goodbye, Mr. Mag." Gloria nodded slightly, and then said goodbye to Amy, who was nodding off at the door with Ugly Duckling in her arms before she went downstairs with Mars. "Father, I think big sister Gloria likes you," Amy said to Mag with a serious expression. Mag looked at Amy perplexedly before he quickly explained, "Big sister Gloria and I are business partners, and not what you think we are." Terrified by the existence of Amy's notebook, Mag felt that it was necessary for him to explain the truth. Amy shook her head, and said, "But I saw that she had stars glowing in her eyes when she looked at you." "That's the reflection of the light, and has nothing to do with stars." Mag pointed at the light in the study. "Really?" "Yes. It's exactly that," Mag replied with conviction. He went to the door to pick up Amy, and gently said, "Let's go. Father will bring you to wash up, and then tell you a nice story." "What nice story are you telling today?" Amy asked expectantly with brightened eyes. "Today, I will tell you the story of Cinderella." "Why am I envying little Amy? It must be a very blissful thing to fall asleep while listening to Mr. Mag's bedtime story, right?" Gloria looked up at the restaurant's second floor through the curtains in a daze. "Young mistress? Young mistress? Ah!" Gloria snapped back to her senses with a blush. Mr. Mag's factory's output is way above our expectations. Although we've kept the core sales team, we have not set up collaboration ties with all the textile shops yet. I'm afraid it will be rather difficult for us to digest these 10,000 bolts of fabric before the next shipment is due, Mars said. If 10,000 bolts of fabrics appear at a specific market with a price that is far lower than the market price, it will cause a series of reactions in the market, even in Rodu. It would then alarm the managers of the city, which is very detrimental to us, who are still at the promotional stage. I think we should split these 10,000 bolts into many portions according to each city's purchasing power. We will try to distribute to each and every market to kickstart the promotion, and establish a working relationship with all the textile shops, Gloria murmured deeply. Mars nodded, and said, although this will increase our transport costs, as long as we can break open the market, a mature multi-market distribution chain will make our sales smoother, and let us avoid the sales chains being paralyzed by the unstable factors that could arise from a single market. Gloria smiled, and said, what I am more curious about now is if Mr. Mag's textile factory was running at full capacity, how many bolts of fabric could it produce? Beyond the wind forest, a beautiful figure stood on the back of a griffin, and lightly lamented, the wind forest, which used to worship freedom, has become an enclosed city. Helena, you're really an unforgivable sinner. Little tree, I'm back, Irina said with a smile. The glowing tree branches waved happily around Irina as though the tree was welcoming her return. Keep a low profile. If that witch Helena finds out that I'm back, I'll have to leave again. Irina motioned the tree of life to quiet down. The joyous tree of life quieted down immediately, and reached a couple of branches out to Irina to caress her hair, as though it was trying to express its joy. All right, I will visit you often, be good. Irina reached out to touch the branches as she looked at the tree lovingly. After coaxing the tree of life for a while, Irina seriously said, all right. I need you to awaken Her Majesty for me. I have something very important that requires her help. The survival of the elves depends on it, or should I say, the entire Norland continent's survival depends on it. After the Elven Queen had gone into seclusion, there was no more news of her. She did not even respond or make any movements even when so many major events had happened among the elves. Therefore, there were many rumors spreading around. Some said that the Elven Queen was dead, and Helena had gained full control of the elves. Some said that the Elven Queen had gone into seclusion to cultivate her magical powers, and had washed her hands off the elf tribe after handing it over to Helena. Irina was certain that Her Majesty did not die, but was in a deep sleep because of a certain reason. Irina did not know how to wake her up, so she could only ask the Tree of Life for help. The Tree of Life swayed its branches gently. Even you can't wake her up. Irina frowned. It seemed like Her Majesty's condition was worse than she thought. Irina fell silent for a while before saying, then do you know how I can form a connection with the goddess of life? I want a connection that's deeper than the one formed with life magic. We need her help. Ding, the branches swayed, and suddenly there was the ringing of a wind chime. Irina closed her eyes subconsciously, and in an instant, she seemed to have seen some scenes flash past her mind like flipping pages, as though history was a book opened right in front of her. She saw the elves building a city in the wind forest, she saw the elves risking their lives to chase the demons out of the forest, she saw the bloodbath during the racial war, she saw the carefree elves in the forest. This was history told backward. The elves used to be very strong, and used to be bullied because they were small, but they had never given up their chase for freedom. Within this sea of history, the Tree of Life was just like a pillar of support, standing strong in the center of the forest, and witnessing the elves' development. Finally, the scene paused at a land of ruins. The ground was black and charred, and there was almost no vegetation around. Even the cruel racial war did not bring about such a horrifying aftermath to the wind forest. A beautiful elf with long silver hair appeared on the barren land, and planted a seed. Irina knew that it was the Tree of Life. And that beautiful elf with long silver hair should be the goddess of life. However, she saw a rough semblance of herself on that elf's blurred face. So you're really the hope that the goddess of life planted to protect the elves forever? The scene faded away, leaving only a boundless white space. Irina looked around at the empty space. She was all alone. Where is this place? Irina asked. Her voice seemed to have traveled really far, but there was no reply. She was not flustered. The tree of life would never harm her. However, she did not know why the tree of life would make her witness the elves' history, and then bring her here. Irina. Just then, a weak voice came from afar, but it sounded as though it was right by her ear. Mother. Irina's eyes lit up. After that, she was a little nervous as she said, "Where are you? How are you now? Why do you sound so weak?" "Don't worry. I'm fine. It seems like the tree of life has bound our thoughts together. Otherwise, I would not be able to talk to you directly." "Did Helena do something to you?" "This has nothing to do with Helena. It's my choice. Back then, during the racial war, although the elves won, I was seriously injured several times. I went into seclusion this time to recuperate from my past injuries. Do you know what happened in the wind forest all this while?" Irina pressed her lips together. "Yes, my child. You did what was right. Just like how we chose to stand up for ourselves." The Queen's voice was filled with happiness and admiration. "You and Helena built all this, but I overthrew it. Do you think that I did the right thing? During my seclusion, I've thought about it. Back then, we chased the demons away, and escaped from being bullied and enslaved, yet we ourselves formed a slavery system, and became what we hated. Our initial intent might have been good, but this was indeed a hilarious and foolish decision. The funniest part is that we've walked further on this wrong path for a century because we were afraid that the system would fail, so we weren't brave enough to turn back and correct ourselves." The Queen sighed. "But you did not stop Helena." Irina frowned. "I'm unable to leave right now. I am attempting the possibility of breaking through to a higher level. This concerns the future of the elves, and maybe the future of Norland continent. Do you already know about the existence of the Great Old Ones?" Irina was shocked. "The Great Old Ones?" The Queen was bewildered. Her tone quickly changed, and seemed a little more rushed. "You mean that horrifying monster that once wreaked havoc on the continent? The unknown thing that was as huge as a mountain?" Irina's eyes lit up. Nodding, she said, "Yes. We've found its sealed head. It was a giant octopus head that's hundreds of meters tall. However, it's going to break out of its seal soon, and even a 10th tier could not kill it completely, or even cause any damage to it. That's why I've returned to the forest. I want to find the goddess of light to help us. The Great Old Ones, they do exist." Chapter 1722 Bablat, you've got to hold on. Yes. In the Book of the Queen that is passed down through generations of elves, there is a vague record about the sleeping gods. After the War of the Gods, the Great Old Ones were sealed all over the continent, and the gods went into a deep sleep, waiting to be awakened again. Where are they sleeping? There are no actual records. It was only said that the goddess of life was sleeping in the Tear of the Moon. Tear of the Moon? Irina frowned. She was sure that there was no such place in the Wind Forest. "Irina, I can't leave here yet. The fate of the elves is now in your hands. You have to stop Helena. Don't let her lead the elves into an abyss." The Elven Queen's voice gradually got weaker until it finally disappeared. "My Queen? Mother? Are you still here?" Irina called. Right at that moment, the scenery in front of her twisted, and in the blink of an eye, she reappeared in the hollow in the Tree of Life. "Thank you, little tree. I've got to go now. I'll come and see you again next time." Irina smiled, and reached out to touch a hanging branch. The tree of life's branches swayed around Irina gently, as if it couldn't bear to let her go. That little maiden out there is not bad too. You can play with her when you're bored. Irina looked at the hole in the tree. Sally was sitting cross-legged under the tree with a pious expression. I will be back again, Irina said before disappearing within the hole in the tree. What was that? Sally, who was sitting cross-legged under the tree of life, opened her eyes instinctively, and looked toward the tree of life suspiciously. She seemed to have sensed a hint of inexplicable magic waves. However, just as she was about to close her eyes again, she saw a glowing branch slowly reaching out to her with disbelief. It went around her once as if it was sizing her up. Sally's expression immediately became nervous and expectant. After becoming the elven princess, one very important thing was to obtain the Tree of Life's recognition. She was only qualified to become the Queen of the Elves after she got the recognition from the Tree of Life. This was the rule set by their ancestors. She had been sitting under the Tree of Life for days, and yet the Tree of Life had never shown any signs of getting close to her, let alone letting her enter the hole in the tree. She never expected it would take the initiative to approach her today. It really surprised her. The scene that happened under the Tree of Life was soon reported to the Starry Cave. I'm indeed right about Sally. Only she could replace Irina. Helena looked at the scene of Sally interacting with the Tree of Life in the crystal ball. She smiled, and said, as long as she could get the Tree of Life's recognition, she could become the Elven Queen. Meanwhile, Irina appeared in an old library at the same time. A golden light flashed, and all the ancient books on the shelves disappeared. She also disappeared from the library at the same time. Irina. Helena's expression changed drastically, and the scene in the crystal ball immediately switched to the empty library. Ow! Right then, an elated roar appeared in the forest. Helena, I'm simply returning home to take a few books. There's no need to get so pissed off. Irina's mocking words rang throughout the sky above the wind forest, and she disappeared soon after that, leaving behind a purple shadow. Your Majesty! You mustn't repair this spell formation. The ancient books recorded that the ancient spell formation under the palace leads to boundless abyss. Once open, it would summon terrifying a devil, and bring a devastating catastrophe upon the Moon Nation. The Moon Nation. In the underground palace, an old courtier knelt on the floor, and desperately pleaded with the king of the Moon Nation. The spell formation in the middle of the underground palace was almost repaired, and dozens of formation masters were busy with the finishing works. When they heard that, they stopped their actions, and looked at the king who was standing beyond the spell formation. If that is true, then we should repair the spell formation as soon as possible. Bablair has already left through this spell formation months ago. She might be tortured by a devil right now. How could I let her suffer alone? The king said with conviction. I am the king and a father too. Even if there is really a devil behind this teleportation portal, I will lead the Moon Nation's cavalry to eliminate it. Your Majesty. That old courtier still wanted to continue. I have already decided. If you have the time to howl here, why don't you lead the historians to read the ancient books and find out where this teleportation portal leads, and what that devil is? The king shouted coldly. Yes. That old courtier, dazed for a moment before he bowed to the king, got up, and then strode off. Babla, you've got to hold on. Royal father is coming to save you soon, the king gravely said as he clenched his fists while he looked at the teleportation portal. This kebab isn't very nice. There's no soul, and it's dry and tough. Moreover, it's too salty. Babla sat on a square rock, and complained disdainfully as she ate a burnt kebab. Ahem, I was actually an expert in barbecuing meat when I was young. However, there's nothing in this cave, so it isn't very nicely barbecued, Crassus said embarrassedly. Haha. The meat that you barbecued when you were young was even worse. Urian coldly sneered as he used an ice blade to cut away the burnt skin delicately. Novan, who was sitting on the edge of the spell formation, smilingly said, You guys are spoiled by Boss Mag. I think this roast kebab is not bad. See, that is someone who knows how to appreciate me. Crassus smiled brightly. No. From tomorrow onwards, I want to eat Mamie restaurant's takeaway. I'm risking my life here to save the world, and yet I have to eat such terrible kebabs. This is so unreasonable, Babla said seriously as she secretly observed Crassus and Urian's expression. I agree. Let's get the Grey Temple or the City Lord's Castle to do this. The logistics have to settle this for us. How could they make a 10th tier barbecue meat for himself? Crassus nodded. I crave for the beggar's chicken right now. However, does Mamie restaurant do takeaway? Novan asked. The only delivery personnel has been sent back to be a chief after getting lost frequently. Babla sighed. That's all right. Leave this to me. You guys eat first. I need to go out for a while. Crassus left in a rush. It will be great if we get to have soybean milk and yashao when we wake up tomorrow. Babla finished the kebab in her hand, and began to translate the seal spell formation with Novan. Chapter 1723 Who can carry that? I have just received a letter from the dragons. They asked us to hold a racial meeting in Chaos City before the peace negotiation to facilitate interactions between all the races. They hope to reach a new peace accord upon the original peace treaty. Michael pushed an envelope with a golden dragon claw mark towards Roland. The dragons have always been neutral, so why would they make this request? Roland was surprised as he opened the envelope on the table. After a while, Roland put down the letter, and gravely said, "It seems like the dragons already know about the existence of the devils." Michael, too, shook his head with a grave expression. "We're not sure how much they know about them. Rather than calling them devils, I think Alex calling them the Great Old Ones is more accurate. The fellows that have survived since ancient times had once dominated our world, and they're still trying to break through the seals to dominate our world again. If those chaps knew about the terror of the Great Old Ones, perhaps they wouldn't want to restart the racial war over a little territory. Are you thinking of making them go see that fellow personally?" Michael's eyes lit up before he showed a hint of hesitation. Roland nodded, and said, "We could hold a secret meeting with all the races in advance as per the dragon's request. Perhaps they would only know the preciousness of peace after they have seen the real terror. Only then would they know what terrifying enemies all the races on the Norland continent are facing." Michael pondered for a moment before he nodded. "All right. I will draft the invitation now, and invite all the races to send representatives here for a closed-door meeting. Are we still holding it at Boss Mag's this time round?" Roland asked. "I think he will agree." Michael chuckled. After Mag tucked Amy into bed, he stood in front of the window, and looked out with a worried expression. Irina going to the Wind Forest equaled her going into a tiger's lair. Although Ozzy was with her, he was still worried about her. However, given her character, he couldn't stop her from going, either. "Are you still worried about me?" Just then, a voice appeared behind him. Mag was slightly taken aback before he turned around and nodded at Irina, who suddenly appeared in the room. "Honestly. Tisk, am I that weak? Do you have to worry about me when I'm just making a trip home?" Irina pursed her lips. "Seems like my worry is unnecessary." Mag smiled. Irina had no injuries, so she shouldn't have had any altercations with Helena directly. He continued, "What did you find out?" "I couldn't find the goddess of life, and the little tree doesn't know how to find her, either." Irina shook her head gently. "However, I had a brief interaction with the queen, and she told me some information about the gods. She said the gods have all gone into a deep sleep after the battle with the devils. We'll have to wake them up when the devils wake up in order to save this world." "Deep sleep? Wake them up?" Mag frowned. "Yes. She said the goddess of life is sleeping in the tear of the moon." "The tear of the moon?" Mag frowned even harder. "I have never heard of this place, either. However, maybe we can get some information about it at the city lord's castle. Irina waved her hand, and a pile of old books appeared on the floor. These are the old books that I have brought out from the library. Some of them are related to spell formations. I am not interested in them, but I wonder if they would help with repairing the spell formation. We can send these over to them. They might be useful to them. Mag nodded. I will make a trip then. Irina nodded. She waved her hand, and 10 odd books disappeared from the pile of books on the floor. She, too, disappeared in the midst of a golden light. She's really efficient. Mag shrugged, and went to shower with a peace of mind. When he came out of the bathroom in a bathrobe, Irina was standing in front of the window with a glass of red wine. Do you think that carrying the burden of an entire race's fate on one's shoulders is a very tiring thing? Irina asked mildly without turning around. Maybe. Mag looked at Irina and nodded. That's a very heavy responsibility. It's so vexing. I have tried all ways and means to shake this burden previously. Irina chuckled self-deprecatingly. She suddenly turned to look at Mag, but now, it seems like I'll have to pick up this burden again. From the moment that you decided to set up the Night Elves, you've already picked it up again. Mag looked at her with a smile. This time, I will carry it with you. How are you going to carry it? Irina took a step closer. Her red lips were like the wine in the glass. Her warm breath had a tinge of wine fragrance. Mag took a deep breath and reached out to pick up an old book behind her. He seriously said, I will spend the night reading through these old books. Perhaps I can find some information about the tier of the moon and the gods' deep sleep from them. Idiot! Irina stomped her feet angrily as she watched Mag go into the study with a book and lock the door. Who can carry that? Mag heaved a breath of relief with his back against the door. He smugly murmured to himself, I almost got caught up. It's fortunate that I can keep my cool. It would really be the end of us if we got ourselves pregnant with a second baby. Early the next morning, while Mag was preparing for service, Michael came. The city lord comes so early in the morning. I wonder what it is about. Michael looked at Michael with surprise. It's like this, Boss Mag. I would like to book Mamie Restaurant for an important meeting in 3 days. I wonder if it is possible. Michael said to Mag with a smile. An important meeting. Mag was puzzled. The peace meeting should take place 15 days later, and a meeting of that scale wouldn't be held in Mamie Restaurant, either. So, what was the important meeting that Michael was talking about? Yes. The city lord's castle has decided to hold a closed-door meeting with all the races in advance to discuss matters of the peace negotiation. Michael lowered his voice, and slipped a missive into Mag's pocket stealthily. Mag flicked a glance at Michael. Obviously, he had bypassed Dicus to tell him this important message. After pondering briefly, he smiled and nodded. Sure. Since this is the case, Mamie Restaurant will be reserved for the city lord on its day off 3 days later. I want to go back to be a courier, seems like the dragons are equally fearful of the great old ones. Mag shredded the letter, and tossed it into the trash can before going downstairs calmly. Amy, who was sitting on the bicycle's back seat and hugging Mag's waist, asked, Father, we're having the term-end party tonight. You will be coming, right? Of course, I have promised you that previously, Mag replied with a smile. What about Mother? Is she free to go? Amy continued to ask. Maybe she will be a little busy. Mag hesitated briefly. Irina had gone out early in the morning again. The elves, the night elves, and the great old ones. There were plenty of matters she needed to handle and settle, so he also wasn't sure if Irina could make it to Amy's term-end party. All right. Amy was a little disappointed, but she soon understandingly said, It's fine. I know she is very busy. Then, I will dance for her after she returns home tonight. Good girl. Mag sent Amy to the chaos school. Krasu and Urian were busy with the Great Old One's matters, so they couldn't give Amy any lessons. Today was the last day of school, and the term-end party would be held tonight, so Amy requested to come to school. "Good morning, little Amy." "Hello, Mr. Mag." A gentle voice sounded at the side as soon as Mag's bicycle stopped. "Good morning, Teacher Luna." Amy hopped off the bicycle, and ran to Luna happily. "Hello, Teacher Luna." Mag smiled at Luna too. Today, Amy wants to spend the last day of this school term with her classmates, so I've sent her to school. Luna understood and nodded. "Sure. Don't worry, I'll make the arrangements for her. Then I will have to trouble you." Mag said his goodbye, and rode off on his bicycle. "Let's go, little Amy." Luna retracted her gaze. She held Amy's hand and walked into the school. "Teacher Luna, will today's party be very lively?" "Yes. All the students and their parents will come to take part. They will be filling up the entire Great Hall." After the breakfast service, Mag went to the textile factory. The textile factory had begun production formally. 10 odd steam engines were working at full capacity, making the dozens of steam engine textile machines work continuously day and night. They ensured that the high-quality fabric was produced continuously. The elves with magical power had easily grasped the operation techniques of the machine. They maintained the machines at their maximum efficiency. Of course, beside the machine's workshop, the hand-spinning workshop also had 5,000 trained elven spinners working right now. They were using the textile machines that Mag had modified, so their spinning efficiency was dozens of times higher than that of normal spinners. They contributed almost half of the textile factory's output. Next to the textile factory, the second factory building was being built. Meanwhile, Mag had already custom-made a batch of new steam engines from shear. After the second factory building was completed and entered production, the output of the textile factory was expected to increase another threefold. That would be a very terrifying output. Ashley followed after Mag, and calmly said, "The first batch of 10,000 bolts of fabric has already been accounted for. They're being stored in the warehouse, and are ready for handover." As the key project of the Night Elves' re-employment, Irina had completely handed the textile factory to this captain with outstanding capabilities. Mag agreed with Irina's decision completely, so he appointed her as the director of the textile factory. And during this period, Mag was indeed very satisfied with Ashley's abilities. Apart from constructing the factory building and teaching how to use the steam engine spinning machines, he was almost completely hands-off. The hand-spinning workshop was suggested by Ashley, and it was quickly set up with a very high efficiency. It doubled the textile factory's output. "Great! I will inform the distributor to come and collect them on the day after tomorrow." Mag sincerely said to Ashley, "Director Ashley, you and everyone else have worked very hard in this period of time. This is our job." Ashley nodded slightly, and a smile appeared on her conservative face. Moreover, everyone likes their job now. They can stand upright and work with dignity. After the handover on the day after tomorrow, get the finance department to calculate everyone's salary. Besides standing upright to work with dignity, I also want everyone to work blissfully." Mag smiled, and then turned to walk towards the entrance. "I'll go check out the construction site next door. Goodbye." Ashley looked at Mag's back with appreciation. Although this Mr. Mag was only a human chef, he possessed astonishing wisdom, and was very accepting of night elves. He resolved the awkward situation that the night elves could have faced after arriving at Chaos City. "But, why is the princess staying at his place?" Doubt appeared on Ashley's face. "Rodu. The royal palace's side hall. The giant dragons are actually taking the initiative to invite all the races to have a peace negotiation, and have articulated their determination to maintain the world's peace. This is really a rare event." Andrei, who was sitting on a high throne, looked at the invite that he had just received and frowned. The few old courtiers standing below were looking at one another. Nobody dared to answer. Andrei put down the invitation, and asked all the courtiers, "Whom do you think we should send?" A general said, "Your Majesty, I think the first prince is the best choice. His Highness is magnificent and mighty. He could demonstrate the power and might of our Roth Empire." A scholarly courtier stepped forward, and interrupted, "Your Majesty, I think the second prince should make the trip. This negotiation is about the peace accord. No matter if we're going to war or maintaining the peace, this concerns the Empire's interests. The second prince is very learned and attentive, so he definitely will be able to fight for more benefits for the Empire." The courtiers had a big disagreement on choosing between the first prince or the second prince, and they began to argue in the hall. "All right, you all may go now." Andrei interrupted their arguments. After everyone had left, he ordered, "Summon Sean and Josh here. At first, I wanted to continue to strive and work hard for the tribe. However, since we have received such an important invitation, then I will have to force myself to make this trip then." Connie looked at the invitation in her hands, and even though she was trying very hard to control herself, she already couldn't help but smile. "Do you know how to go to Chaos City?" Rex threw a glance at her. Connie looked upwards, and proudly said, "I've made my own way to Chaos City previously." "But you actually wanted to go to the Roth Empire's capital, Rodu, at first." Rex chuckled. "You simply mixed up north and south." Connie froze, and soon huffed. "I don't care. I want to go back to being a courier." Chapter 1725 I've died. "Little sister. I want little sister," Parber said as he tugged Trajay's collar. "Come, Uncle Harrison will bring you to go look for those pretty elven sisters." Harrison bent down to pick up Parber, and then walked to the horse-drawn carriage. "Let's go, Angus, Christy. Let's go look for those pretty elven sisters." Trajay quickly caught up with the two little ones in his arms. It wasn't being a hands-on dad, especially when you had 3 kids. The customers who came to Mamie restaurant all left in disappointment after seeing the notice hanging on the door. However, since Boss Mag was going to Little Boss's parent-teacher meeting, he gained everyone's empathy easily with quite a legitimate reason. Meanwhile, at Mana Hot Pot restaurant, which was 500 meters away, the great hall that could accommodate 1,000 people was already completely full. Over 100 hot pots were boiling at the same time, and it was boisterous. People were having a fiery time eating, and the cold was left at the door. Some customers had even stripped down to a single layer of clothing, and yet they were still sweating profusely. Rena stood on the second floor, and calmly watched the orderly elves shuttle around the busy hall while providing a precise and efficient service for the customers. After accumulation over 2 weeks, Mana Hot Pot restaurant had gained many customers. The peak business hours during dinner were almost always full of customers. They could receive over 3,000 customers in a day. Meanwhile, the service standard of the service staff in the Hot Pot restaurant had increased greatly after the fine-tuning during this period of time. They could already easily handle the great number of customers during the peak hours. The restaurant could operate as usual even when she wasn't present in the restaurant. Many customers are complaining that the Hot Pot restaurant was set up in the south of the city, and those customers who are living in the east and west of the city cannot come here easily. They wonder if we could open another 2 smaller hot pot restaurants in the east and the west of the city. Rena looked at the bustling customers and over 100 steaming hot pots. They seemed to be showing off the huge market that was hiding behind them. Mag, who was wearing a grey coat, was standing at the entrance of Chaos School. Amy was standing next to him in a white dress and a cute bunny hat. Both of them were looking around. "Let's go. We should go in now." Mag held Amy's little hand, and walked into the school with the crowd. "But, is Mother really not coming?" Although Amy was following Mag into the school, she couldn't help looking back at the school's entrance. Today was the Chaos School's primary section's term-end party. Because the children from the primary section were small, the parents were invited to the party too. The harmonious relationship of the students, parents, and families was established. Mag gently consoled her while rubbing her head smilingly. She might have something on, and cannot get here in time. Let's go meet up with your schoolmates first. Perhaps she will arrive shortly. He had mentioned this to Irina in the morning, but he didn't get a confirmation from her. All right. Amy retracted her gaze. She let go of Mag's hand and skipped forward. The rabbit's ears on her hat also swung around her, making her look like a little running little rabbit. Whoa, so cute. Yes. She looks just like a little bunny. What an adorable child. Are there rabbit-type orcs? How could she be so cute? The surrounding people's eyes lit up, and they sang praises when they saw Amy skipping. Hush! This is the super junior student that even many seniors in the secondary section dare not provoke, Amy. Yes. It's that super elf who is so cute yet can send one flying with a punch. Those students who recognized Amy spoke with awe. Amy stopped, showing off her fair little fist, and said, "No, I only beat up the baddies." If they hadn't personally seen her send the gifted magic caster from the Roth Empire's team flying with her staff, they would have been fooled by her adorable looks too. I'm just a little rabbit. I'm cute when I hop around. Amy retracted her fist, and continued to skip toward. Who is so lucky to have such an adorable little princess? The parents' envious gaze landed on the man in the grey coat following behind Amy. Mag curled his lips, feeling very proud of his daughter. That pride was almost spilling out of him. Yes. It was him. The man who had such an adorable little princess. A man whom all the men in the world were envious and jealous of. ISNT, that boss Mag from Mamie restaurant. Someone recognized Mag, so he's that man who grilled kebabs at the parent-teacher meeting and caused a commotion. One of the best chefs on the Norland continent. A commotion broke out instantly. I don't know if I should envy him or envy that little girl skipping in front. Not everyone could have such a good daddy. Therefore, Mag and Amy walked into the hall under the envious and admiring gazes. Little Amy, Mr. Mag, this way please. Teacher Luna waved at them from the first row. Father, this way. Amy held Mag's hand, and walked towards Luna. They greeted each other simply, and because Amy would be performing on the stage shortly, Luna arranged for Mag and Amy to sit closer to the stage. Then, she continued to sit with the other students and parents. Daphne 1, Ignatsu. Amy waved at her two friends. Daphne's grandpa came with her, while Ignatsu came alone. He sat next to Amy, a little depressed. Amy said to Ignatsu, "Did your parents forget again? I'm beginning to suspect you are not their biological child now." "I'm beginning to feel like that too." Ignatsu nodded in agreement. The bean sprout on his head bent over dejectedly too. "Little Amy, your hat is so adorable. It looks like rabbit's ears." Daphne sat on the other side of Amy, and looked at Amy's hat with surprise. She couldn't help but reach out to press on the rabbit's ears. "It's so soft and comfortable. See, it can even move." Amy tilted her head, and two ears stood up immediately before the tips slowly bent downwards. Amy blinked her eyes at Daphne and smiled brightly. "Arg! I've died." Daphne collapsed into her grandpa's embrace. One the author mistakenly named Miranda here and in several places later.